Started. Township of Monroe Planning Board meeting July 25th, 2024. It's now 6:30 p.m. Please stand and salute the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, it is hereby announced and shall be entered into the minutes of this meeting that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the following: posted on the bulletin board of the office of the Township Clerk, posted on the bulletin boards within the municipal complex, printed in the Home News Tribune and Cranberry Press on December 29, 2023, posted on the Monroe Township website, and sent to those individuals who have requested personal notice. Or take roll, please.
Mr. Rothman?
Here.
Ms. Brodsky? Here. Mr. Manesh Patel? Ms. Damiani?
Here.
Mr. Weinberg? Mr. Weiner?
Yes, here.
Dr. Kenzie?
Here.
Councilman Van Zorif?
Here.
Mr. Hamet Patel?
Here.
Chairman Gaffrey?
Here. Okay, the first order of business is to accept the minutes. Laura sent the minutes from the May 29, 2024 meeting. Please, if you haven't done so, take a look. And is there a motion to accept the minutes?
I make a motion. Accept.
Seconded.
Second? Okay. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain?
Mr. Wing? Okay, the minutes are accepted. Okay, we have one application this evening. It's the permitted PB 1250-22 Federal Business Centers, Inc. Request for preliminary and final site plan with bulk variances. Mr. Smith?
Mr. Chairman, Bob Smith. I'm a licensed attorney in the state of New Jersey, and I'm here tonight representing this applicant. As you mentioned, we are seeking approval for a logistics facility. Total square footage, 176,085 square feet. Of that, it's broken down into 167,085 square feet of logistics and 9,000 square feet of office. I would point out, and I'd say this like 500 times, what you hear, believe you're hearing 500 times. It's a permitted use. This is the HD zone, and these facilities are a permitted use in that zone. We do have, we're seeking preliminary and final site plan approval. We're seeking some bulk variances and some design waivers. And if I can, for the record, Mr. Chairman, let me list everything, okay? And by the way, some of the variances, there's a discussion between the professionals about whether they're needed or not. I'll point that out. In any case, if any of them are needed, we're requesting them. So the first one is minimum lot depth. And the requirements in the ordinance are 500 feet. We've received comments from your planner indicating that it requires a variance. We have had discussions back and forth whether it actually applies or doesn't. But in any case, if we need it, we're asking for it. Number two is buffer area. This is also a variance. The requirement is that the buffer shall consist of a 6-foot-high sculptured undulating berm, and we already have an existing wooded vegetation and literally a forest. So you may want to consider that variance is appropriate. Number three, retaining walls. The requirement is that no use or activity or sign shall be erected within the buffer area, and we are proposing a retaining area located within the buffer area, and of course we'll give the reasons why. So we're requesting that. With regard to signage, the maximum number of signs per your ordinance is one freestanding sign permitted for each use. We're proposing 3, and it requires a variance. And remember, of course, that one of the this is a building that we are building prior to knowing who the tenant is, so the number of signs may need the variance required or requested. Number 5, sign location. Your ordinance says the requirement is that no sign shall be located closer than 20 feet to any lot line, and that the maximum setback is 45 feet. We are proposing a variance, allowing us to do the sign at 5 feet from the lot line. And number 6, also requiring a variance, sign in the buffer area. The requirement is that no signs are permitted in a buffer area. We're proposing signage in the buffer area, so it does require a variance. And again, we will provide a justification for all this. With regard to parking, loading, and circulation, the number of parking spaces required under your ordinance is 254 parking spaces. We're proposing 154 parking spaces and then a 7 EV parking space credit. As you know, that under state law, when you install EV spaces, there is a credit to be allowed for that. So we are proposing in effect 154 plus 7 to equal 161 of the 254 required. So we require a parking variance. Parking stall size, the requirement is 10 by 20. We're proposing 9 by 18. And we think that's either a variance or a design waiver. You've handled it. Either way it's handled, we're requesting it. Parking stall location, the requirement is that the parking stalls are not located in the front yard. We are proposing in our site plan, no parking proposed in the 60-foot front yard setback area. But the way your definitions read, you may be talking about a wider area. The ordinance says, or within 100 feet of the right-of-way buffer area along Butcher Road or along North Disbrow Hill. So, and this was one of the ones where there was a discussion about which side of the lot is the one that should be counted. And there's differing points of view on that, but if the variance is required, we're requesting it. Parking in relation to building outer walls. The requirement in your ordinance is no parking within 30 feet of outer walls or structures. We're proposing 20 feet in the main parking area and 8 feet in the loading dock area. We agree that that requires a variance and we're requesting it. Driveway width, your requirement in the ordinance is that driveway width at the curb line should be limited to 15 to 35 feet. We're proposing 65 feet/80 feet, which requires a variance. With regard to site design, lighting, and landscaping, the design requirements in your ordinance requires the applicant, as we've been before your TRC, and revised plans based on comments provided. So we've revised the plans accordingly, but the applicant proposes conceptual building design that complies with the regulations within your ordinance, and we'll work with the board or its professionals any way they want. Whatever they want, we're going to do. Lighting, the requirement is minimum parking area 75% of the average level, which is 2.2 foot candles. We're proposing 0.3 on the southeastern corner of the lot. And that requires a design waiver. We don't believe it requires a variance. There are 3 other design waivers. I would advise the board and any professionals, don't get a new phone the night before you have a hearing. So wish me luck. So, 3 other design waivers. Use of HDPE storm pipe where RCP is required. Next, lawn grading exceeding 20% more than 5 feet from the building and 2% minimum lawn slope. And then lastly, request to waive additional soil logs not required by the best management practices manual. And that's it. That's what we're seeking tonight. It's we have turned in the jurisdictional documents. It's my plan, Mr. Chairman, to offer 5 witnesses. I have on behalf of Federal Business, Mr. Patrick Connolly, who's seated to my right, our engineer, well known to the board, Sharif Ali, Our traffic expert, Eric Valoria, licensed PE, traffic specialist. Our architect is Ron Kazmersky to show you what the project would look like. And then finally, our planner is Christine Cafone, who's a well-known professional planner in the state of New Jersey. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to call my first witness, have him sworn so he can give testimony.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is Mr.
Right
Connolly.
hand, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name.
Patrick Connolly, Connelly.
Okay. Mr. Connolly, for the record, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
So I'm Executive Director of Federal Business Centers, Inc.
Okay, and do you have experience in this business?
I do.
Could you tell us about it?
Sure. I've been with Federal Business Centers in my current position for 12 years. Prior to that, I spent over 20 years with another development company that was actually headquartered in Monroe, so have extensive experience in this field.
Great. And just, I'm sure the board probably knows federal business, but if you give us the short version of federal business's role in this state, we'd appreciate it.
Sure. So Federal Business Centers is a family-owned company. It's been in business since 1938. Right now, we have our fourth generation working with us, and primarily we have a business center in Edison called Raritan Center, which many of you may recognize. Within that center, we have about 8 million square feet of buildings. There's about 70 buildings and with 180 tenants. This property in particular was purchased in 1970 by the company.
And let me ask you, why Monroe? Why do you want to locate here?
Well, the Route 33 corridor is a very applicable place for distribution. Its proximity to Exit 8 and the Turnpike is appealing for the warehouse and distribution industry. And Monroe is a wonderful place. I've grown up here, and we have long time sought to actually bring this project to fruition.
We've reviewed all the staff reports and discussed our project with our professionals. Some of the staff reports, in fact, a couple of them say, tell us what tenant will be there, how many employees will they employ, what will be the hours of operation. And would you explain how we have to respond to that?
Yes, so like many projects of this nature, we're building this building as a speculative venture without having a tenant identified specifically. We've tried to design the building to be as flexible as possible and to meet the needs of your average type of use. That said, we just don't know what the specifics would be to the specific operation, but we feel we've created a design that is very well adaptable to the needs of what we know based on our experience.
Mr. Connolly, anything else you want to add?
Pardon?
Anything else you want to add?
No, just that I think from our perspective, we hope that after hearing from all of our professionals and testimony, that you will get a great understanding of our project and that we've worked very hard to maintain the forested areas and create a building that is appropriately sized for the site. And just point out that although it is a large building by certain people's perspectives, it is much smaller than the mega warehouses that are sometimes associated with the negativity. And we also believe the proximity to Route 33 affords its location to be very, very good.
Mr. Connolly's available for questions.
Did I hear you've owned the property since 1970?
We have, yep.
Anybody on the board wish to?
I have a question.
Mr.
Although
Ventura?
you don't have a specific tenant at this time, based on the size of the building and the nature of the project itself, would you be able to estimate about how many employees could be expected at such a warehouse, and in relation to that, the number of prospective vehicles or trucks or things that might be in and out of the warehouse.
Sure. I mean, as well versed as I am, I would rather that our licensed professionals address that during the course of their testimony. That way you get it from the folks who are licensed to speak in
And
that regard.
on our list, we have a traffic expert
Well,
who has consulted with the ITE, the Institute of Traffic Engineers, which has data from all over the United States of America about buildings and projects like this, and can provide a pretty good estimate of the kinds of impacts that Mr. Van Zor wants to know about. So if you let us get to number 3,
fair enough.
we'll cover it.
We'll hold that for later.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No, thanks.
You were non-compliant.
Thank you, Mr. I'd ask that Sharif Ali, our engineer, come forward, be sworn so they can give testimony.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your full name and spell your last name, please.
Sharif Ali, ALY.
And just for the record, Mr. Ali, you've been accepted by this board on almost an infinite number of occasions as a licensed professional engineer in New Jersey, and you've been recognized as an expert. Have your credentials deteriorated in any way since the last time you were here?
No, I'm still here.
I'd ask you to be accepted, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Okay, for the record, Mr. Ali, by whom are you employed in what capacity?
Amertech Engineering, I'm the president.
Okay. So, and you prepared the plans, or your shop prepared the plans that's before the board tonight?
Yes.
Okay. If you would, and I never like to get in the way of our experts, I'd like you to describe the existing property and the proposed development. And it looks like we have an exhibit.
Yes.
Maybe we need to go back to the existing, right? Okay, and what is that
Yeah, we
exhibit?
can.
You want to go with that one?
First one, yeah. What is that exhibit?
That's an aerial exhibit that was downloaded just yesterday.
Okay, and are we
Mr. Chairman,
providing?
Is there a way we can have that identified for future reference for the record?
Absolutely.
That was one of our first meetings where we're using
The new stuff,
the videos.
right? Same thing about don't get the
Any
cell phone the
suggestions?
night before.
Oh, the applicant, so this exhibit should be A1.
A1, and we have a flash drive that we're giving to the board, which has all of this on it. And in terms of a paper exhibit, what else do we have?
Sure.
We have all of our exhibits on 11 by 17s. Sharif, they're
Yes.
11 by 17s. We'd like to pass them out. And I don't know whether you want each page, maybe as we bring them up, we'll describe the page.
All I'm saying, Mr. Smith, is for the record later on, probably for your benefit too, maybe mark the paper exhibits. We can certainly see the video screen, and I think it's great because then the rest of the audience can see it much better than we ever had before.
Right.
Mr. Chairman, just a quick question for both our attorney and for applicant's counsel and the engineer. Is this exhibit the same as what's on the screen?
What you have is a zoom out exhibits.
But it's the same,
It's the same.
okay, because,
Yeah. It's just covering more.
gotcha, so it's not identical, that's a zoomed in version
The
of
one
what's
the
on the
screen-
paper.
The one on the screen is zoomed in. Yes.
Okay, do we have it? I think we're still circulating, right? Or not?
I
A1,
think we do have.
today's date. You got to put on the paper sheet as well.
Each one, mark it A1, A2, A3, A4.
Exactly.
Okay. So Sharif, if you would do that. Yep. And on the first page, if you don't mind, put tonight's date, July 25th.
Got it.
And do you have A2, A3, A4, A5 marked on? Okay, just checking.
As we go through, yes.
All right. So let's talk about A1. First of all, who prepared it and what is it?
So it's prepared by Amertech Engineering. It's an aerial, and the project site is superimposed on top of it, so you can get
Right.
understanding.
And let me ask you, when did you take when did you take the picture? What was
The
it?
microphone, can't hear you.
That was yesterday.
Yesterday. So that's what the site looks like as of July 24th, 2024?
Yes,
Okay, and move that mic closer so everybody can hear you.
sure.
It's on.
So we're starting with the aerial. If you look at the map, the top of the screen, that will be north. So if you're familiar with the area and you're on Butcher Road and you're proceeding north, you'll be crossing 33, and then Butcher Road becomes Abergarth Road, and that takes you all the way to Forest Gate. And if you make a left, you'll be going to the Turnpike. If you hit the intersection of 33, that will be eastbound and westbound. The eastbound is on our side. We about close to 600 feet away from the traffic light and Route 33.
Excuse me, we don't see 33 on that map.
So that's the general location.
As the attorney for the board, I'd like to announce that you will get your turn to speak, but the applicant by law goes first. So hold your questions and let the applicant present its case. Thank you.
So again, if we all familiar with the area, that's where we're at, just about 600 feet south of the intersection of 33. Also, we consider that area of Monroe is the southern part of Monroe. So we not too far from Manalapan to the east, from East Windsor to the west, and Millstone to the south. Landmarks in the area, if some of the board members familiar back in the 90s, started Monroe Manor and the 5 miles of sewer and water that opened up that area for developments. Also landmarks recently being constructed, you have Wawa on the east bound of 33, which is about 500 feet away from the site. You also have Quick Check on the other side of the highway, McDonald's, and some of the Starbucks is about to come up, and some of the new developments in the area. So that's pretty much the general location of the site. Now, if you zoom in, and what you see on the screen is that you see Butcher Road to the west. That is a county road, totally under the jurisdiction of the county. And we have a limited frontage on Butcher Road. And you also see North Disborough Road, that will be to the south of the site, and we have quite a bit of frontage on North Disborough Road. So that's what you see as far as the location. So we pretty much on the northeastern quadrant of the intersection of Butcher Road and North Disborough Road. So with that said, the existing condition, you see it on the screen in the middle of the site, talking about cultivated area, is being cultivated since I've been here in Monroe back in the 80s. And around it, you will see mature trees, vegetations, and you will see also Bentley Brook, which is pretty much close to the headwater of Bentley Brook. And that is the brook that crosses the highway there, where you have the bridge there. So that is to the east, and along Bentley, our zoning ordinance has the flood hazard and conservation zone. We're not touching that zone, we're not developing in that zone. That zone is protected with wetlands, moderate slope, mature trees, flood hazard area, and all being confirmed with the state of New Jersey for wetlands verification, also known as LOI, letter of interpretation, also being confirmed by the state for flood hazard, and all the buffers that associated with that, all on the plan and all being confirmed and approved by the state of New Jersey. So that is the existing, and I mentioned that we have frontage on North Disborough Road, which is Township Road. It's a township road that has been recently, some milling and paving for the whole entire road been, so it's recently resurfaced, has lighting has light poles along the whole entire road, but no sidewalks and no curves. It's just a typical of the southern area of Monroe of roadways. So that's what we have. Butcher Road, as I said, that is, I would say about close to fully improved road, but we have some work to do along our frontage, and we'll get into that. And again, it's controlled by Middlesex County. So we have 25 acres of land that is, and you heard before that, designated on tax map, the official tax map of Monroe as lot 31 and 32. And we have in block 1, block 3. So block 1 is the other side. That's the tax map where they start block 1 and 2 and 3. That's where they started there. So we in block 3. The whole entire block 3, which it goes all the way, if you drive on Route 33 East, goes all the way down to Primeville Road. That's the whole block of block 3. So very, very large block. And the whole entire block is designated as highway developments. Distribution warehouse is permitted. You heard it before. It's permitted in the highway development zone. You go have approved a couple of warehouses within that HD zone along the highway. We have no frontage along the highway. Our frontage is Butcher Road and Disborough Hill Road. So with respect to what's out there, so our site is vacant. To the south is a very large site that also belonged to our client that is vacant and is going to stay vacant forever. It's contained wetlands and flood hazard. And that buffer the site from the single family as well as Monroe Manor developments for several feet. So quite a bit of buffering there. To the east of our site, it's all vacant. There is nothing there. It's the floodplain of Bentley Brook. To the north and adjacent to the site, you have 2 lots, 2 residents, and if you add there, you will see a sign for sale. The 2 lots, about 6 acres, 7 acres, been for sale for at least 2 or 3 years. And they're just waiting for a user that is permitted in the HD zone. So very soon you will see that turn into commercial establishment. To the north of that, there is a single family, and then you got the jog handle. That house has been there for a long time, and again, it's waiting to be grabbed to be in the HD zone to be developed. And northeast of that, you have a house that again is waiting for HD zone user. And that is a rental. To the northeast of that, to the east of that, you have already highway development user that is, I'm not really sure what they do there, but it's mechanics, tires, oil change, towing. So that's what they have. To the east of that, also a single family that is for sale, and it's been for sale for quite a bit, waiting for an HD permitted user. So that is the adjacent property around our site. To the west of that is the HD zone. And what you see out there, which is a mix of Wawa, the townhomes, and the apartments. The apartment and the townhome, that's affordable housing, one of our affordable housing site, and it's an overlay on top of HD zone. People moved there, they knew that it's an overlay zone. So that is the surrounding, and that's what we have out there. That's the existing condition.
Okay, would you describe our proposal to the board?
Just before you do that, can you just describe what an HD zone is?
The HD zone, we are along the highway and all our property along the highway, so it's a highway development zone. And if you go in the ordinance, you're gonna see so many permitted users within that zone. And the famous one is the warehouses. It's all permitted. So what we are proposing, you heard that,
Which exhibit are we going to be
the
pointing
color
at?
one. The color one that was on before.
Okay, and what's that marked in your package?
I have A1, so I'm assuming that will be A2.
Okay. All right, who prepared the exhibit?
Amertech Engineering.
Okay, and would you describe what's in front of the board and the public?
So it's a color zone, color map of the proposed or the future developments. That shows the warehouse in that orange or black color.
Need the mic.
Was that already in the package that you provided? So I don't think.
This is your marked one. Would you keep that?
Yeah. Oh, but it wasn't colorized. So yep, put them back up. Sharif?
Yes.
You need to put, okay. Is there enough?
Yeah, for every two.
So this was provided in the package, but not colorized. So we might want to call this A9? Or not?
A2.
I think Mr. Sharif Mr. Ali just indicated A2.
A2?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you heard a little bit about our proposal as a distribution warehouse that you will see pretty much, if you remember looking at the aerial and the farmed area, it's pretty much in that area. That will be the building. And you heard that we, a footprint of 176,000 square feet. To be precise, 176,085 square feet. So let's go 176 to make it simple. 9,000 of that is shoved in the corner. I would say that would be the southwest corner. As you're coming in with access driveway from this part of her road, you will see that office right there, one level, no mezzanine. It's only one level, 9,000 square feet. And the remainder, which is about 167 plus, is the warehouse. So that's what you see in that reddish color. Along with that, you will see two driveway cuts. The first one to the west, closer to the intersection, that is the small automobile cars, the employees, that goes into a parking lot and it's got the parking spaces there, two-way circulations throughout the whole entire parking lot. And that's the area that you access the office building, the office portion of the building. The second driveway, as you proceed down on North Disborough Road, is the truck entrance. And that leads to the loading docks in the back of the building. So if you look at the trailer spaces, so if you look at the building and the way that we situated that on the lot, we try to be sensitive to our neighbors by putting that loading area in that particular back area away from the neighbors to the west. So, and that's where you get the loading docks activities. The light small cars, which is the parking lot, that is, you're talking about very light, very, very light activities there in that parking lot. So along with that, you will see that the parking lot, the building is set back 100 feet to respect the township buffer. So we do have that 100-foot buffer setback. Also, you will see in that yellow or the mustard color, that is the our stormwater facilities, which meets the current standard that was set by the state of New Jersey recently. Also, you will see two green stormwater facilities. We call them bioretention basins. So it's not what you, most of you see out there, like detention basins in Monroe Manor. That's not the case anymore. Now we design for green infrastructures. So everything's in green now. So the bioretention is all vegetated. So even though that they act as stormwater facility, but it's all vegetated bottom, top, slope. So it's part of pretty much the buffer, or within the buffer. And that is for water quality. So that's what you see on the screen. That's our proposal. Along with that, we have provided 154 9x18 spaces, and we'll talk about why is 9x18. That is the employees and the small car spaces in the first parking lot. What's permitted in the ordinance, and the ordinance is not really up to standard as far as warehouses and the way they operate. And we have our traffic engineer. We'll talk to you. We'll talk more about that. So we have it's required 254 by the ordinance. So that is one of the variants that you heard about it with the introductions. We also provided within the 154 spaces 7 AV spaces. That is a state requirement, AV, electrical vehicle spaces. And because we provided 7 of them, the state says you get 7 as a credit on paper. So we have 161 spaces. So we also provided 4 ADA spaces, and that's a federal law, ADA spaces. And we meet the requirement for that. So 4 spaces. So that's as far as our parking and distribution there. I mentioned that we have trailer spaces. The ordinance has what's the maximum permitted by the ordinance. The maximum is 33 spaces. We have 23, so we do meet the requirement. We could go up to 33 if we want. Loading docks, the ordinance, the minimum required is 9. We exceeded the minimum. We have 21 loading docks. And also we meeting the space size for that, which is 12 by 50, I believe. We have 12 and a half by 60. So that's as far as what we are proposing. Along with that, we are extending, there is the utilities out there, gas, electric, sewer, water. You heard me talking about the 5 miles of sewer and water that we put out there. So that will be all extended to the building. A landscaping package we have is being reviewed by your consulting. Any recommendation there will implement. Today, I spoke to Mr. Lavallo, Gary Lavallo. He's almost done with his tree and removal replacement. And everything that we provided to him, pretty much that's what he was looking for. He just need to put his conclusion on it. We also have our lighting package. Maximum height of a light pole is 20 feet. We selected black poles, so that's pretty much the standard out there. And LD. And we have the lights will be turned off after 10 o'clock and will be on sensors. And that is being reviewed by your professionals. And we have one small variance there. And you heard about it. We'll talk more about that, is the coverage on the ground in the loading docks area. And we'll go back to that. So along with that, so I did cover the buffer. I covered the landscaping, the lighting, the utilities, road improvements. So you heard me saying that Butcher Road is a county road. We met with the county. We have their approvals. So Butcher Road, the traffic light at the highway there, the intersection with DOT, we already met with the county. We have their approvals. They had asked us to do the typical of Middlesex County. Pavement widening, we will do. Curb, we'll do. Sidewalks, lighting, we will do. And it's all shown on the plan. Dedicated turn left coming from Butcher Road, coming into North Disborough Road. We will be doing that. It's on the plan. ADA ramps, everything that the county asked for, and we got their approvals. The North Disborough Road is a township road. We'll do our side of pavement widening, our side of curbing, and sidewalks. It's not really required in commercial or industrial zones. So it's not required for this zone, but we are willing to put the sidewalks. So we are willing to put the sidewalks from our second driveway all the way up to the intersection of Butcher Road. And that was a result of a bunch of meetings with your staff. So we are in agreement with that, along with the storm sewer, everything that the town asked for on our side. On the other side, we, as you heard me saying, the road was just repaved. So we will protect the edge of pavement by flush curb to hold the edge of pavement on the other side. We will put guide rails on the other side to stop anyone from stopping on the road, as well as signs. So will be no truckers. Nobody will be allowed to stop on the road. Signs and guide rails will be provided. So that was all a result of multiple meetings with your staff. So that's our improvements. I covered the road improvements, signs. we have, the ordinance is very, very clear and straightforward, saying one sign per one frontage. We have two frontage. We are requesting 3 signs. So we allow 2, but we're asking for 1 more. And the reason for that, because we have a second driveway for the trucks. We don't want the trucker to keep going and get into the residential area. So we're trying to be super sensitive to contain our operation and our future site plan, and to make sure that everything is tied up. That's the reason for that 3rd sign. We also have a directional sign. We used to have horrible time people come into our adult communities and they drive on Applegarth Road and they keep going. They don't know where they were going. So we have direction signs. So the direction sign is going to be at the beginning of the site where it says, hey, the next intersection, you're going to have to make that left to get into that. So we're trying to contain everything within that intersection. So that's the reason. We have a variance beside that, what I mentioned, a number of signs. We also have a variance for the ordinance required 20 feet setback from the right of way, which is, let's say, about 10 feet from the curb line. Well, 20 feet, you will be 30 feet away from the curb line. Yes.
Into the mic.
That will make it 30 feet into the woods, into the upper area.
You know, why don't you take, mine's working. Sharif, is that working? Blow into it. I'm not hearing you.
It's not working.
There you go. So what I was saying is that the ordinance has a setbacks of 20 feet from the right of way, which is pretty much more or less about 30 feet from the curb line, which you see out there as you're driving on the road. That will put the sign way into the woods area and the trees. So we don't want to have a trucker again driving all the way down and trying to look for the facility because he missed a sign. So we are proposing the sign to be 5 feet. And Monroe so far have been granting this because the idea of not or directing the visitor to the site. So that's the reason for that variance. So I think I covered pretty much everything. And I would like to go to the bulk requirement within the zoning. So the bulk requirement has 2 components, as you know. One is the lot configuration, the lot area, and got to do with the setback, the lot width, the lot depth. And the second part is the building itself, coverage, impervious coverage, and the improvement. So the first part, we do meet all the requirement. As far as the area, the lot width, the depth, even though that CME flagged it as a variance, I really disagree with that. So I'm sorry, but I have to put it on the record. I've been practicing here in Monroe since the 80s. I went through so many planners. They always look at the shore, the frontage is the frontage of the site. And in this case will be Butcher Road. And if you take that projection of that lot line to the common lot line with the neighbors, it's about 417 after dedication. They're looking at it as a lot depth. We're looking at the lot depth extension of that to the site. But as Mr. Smith said, is that if it's a variance, it's a variance. But I just want to say a little bit about that. But so as far as the setback, the front setback, the side setback, we all meeting the requirement. Let's look at the building height. The ordinance allows 45 feet, 3 stories. Well, it's a warehouse, so we 1 story, and we at the 45 feet mark. So we meeting that requirement, and that's a crucial one. So we are meeting that. Building coverage, the ordinance allowed 35%. 35%, we only 16 and a half. It's half of that, which is about 4 acres out of that whole entire 25 acres. That's for the building. So we're meeting that requirement. The impervious coverage, and you will see most of the warehouse user will be asking for 60%. Just about each one that I did in town, 60%. We here asking for 29%. It's half of that 60% permitted, which is about 7 acres. So out of that whole entire 25 acres, we only use in 7 acres. So that is what we have. The floor area ratio permitted is 0.4. You can look at it as a 40%. We 0.15, again, so small. So that's as far as the bulk requirement that we have. So I think I did cover, Bob, pretty much everything. We can go through the reports, or we can go through the variances. I can.
Mr. Chairman, whatever the procedures of your board are, if you want me to open Mr. Sharif up for questions to the board, we can do that now. If you want us to respond to the reports, we can do that now. What is your direction?
Defer to the planner and engineer. Mark, if you have anything you want to question, I had too.
Not at this time. I would let them continue.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Now, this one's dead. The battery's dead, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to do this. First of all, let me draw your attention, Mr. Sharif, to the report of Center State Engineering, specifically Mr. Razumovitz. The report is dated April the 2nd, 2024. Have you read it? So, for the record, sure. Yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. Let me move you out, Mr. Connolly. There is a solution to this problem. All right. So for the record, have you read the report?
Yes.
Okay. And in doing so, roughly 90% of the comments are, we agree with them, or we've already provided, correct?
Correct.
With your permission, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Razumovitz and your attorney, we'd like to only point out those parts of the report where we have some disagreement or need clarification, if that would work. Other than that, we agree with the comment, unless we note it now.
And that's fine.
Okay, so I'm going to draw your attention to that report and direct your attention to page 3 of 13. And specifically, on that page, item 2, 3, and 10, we would like to talk to the board about it. Item 2, and I'll read it for the board. The applicant shall discuss the details of the application and provide a description of the proposed operations, indicating the effects of the use in producing traffic, noise, etc. The description shall include the hours of operation, number of tenants, number of employees, licensing, maximum occupancy, site maintenance, etc. This information shall be provided on the cover sheet. Mr. Connolly up earlier, I asked him to respond to that, and he pointed out this is a spec building. But we do have another witness coming up, our traffic engineer, who's going to be able to give you everybody's best guess from the Institute of Traffic Engineers. So I'll ask that we save that for our traffic guy. Number 3,
So I would like to just clarify item number 2. The only part that we are not providing right now is the description of the proposed operation. The rest of the paragraph, we are in agreement.
Can't do the operation because we don't have a tenant. Number 3, a written description of the proposed operation shall be provided in accordance with section so-and-so of the Code of Monroe Township. And basically, it's the same answer.
That is correct.
Don't know the tenant yet.
Here, I have this one up. But there you go. It's working? Yeah, we got to do it.
Okay, we've got a new mic, so maybe this may be a little easier. I direct your attention to number 10 on page 3. It says the site plan indicates the use will be a distribution warehouse. Will there be multiple tenants? Would you respond to that? Actually, that'll be Mr. Conley if it's okay.
Sure. As we said, the building has been designed with maximum flexibility in mind. Ideally, it would be suited for one, but there would be no more than two based on the type of configuration that's there.
Thank you. All right, if you would turn to the next page, page 4 of 13. Item 13, the full width of North Disbrow Hill Road shall be milled and paved along the entire frontage of the property. The road was recently paved. Agreed to widening. So what is our response to that, Sharif?
So you heard me before talking about the North Disbrow Road, and it's already been repaved. So it's not like we're not providing, it's already done there by the township. So the work has already been done.
Okay, and before we go any further, for those standing in the back, we've set up an overflow area that you can observe. If you go down the stairs, Mr. McGowan will be there and he'll direct you where you can go, so you don't have to stand for this.
I'd rather standing, it's okay. Yeah, you.
Okay, proceed.
Okay. Item 17 on that page. The proposed tenant panel sign detail should be revised to provide the pertinent information. Who would like to respond to that? It's item 14. Is it 14? No, it's item 17.
Yeah, of course. I think this is the same situation with the panel sign. Once we actually have a tenant in place, then we would agree to work with the township so that they were comfortable with what was worked out.
Okay. I direct your attention to page 5 of 13, item number 7. It says per section 108-5.20.1, parens 1 of the Code of Monroe Township, parking areas or fill are prohibited within 50 feet of the 100-year floodplain. The distance from the 100-year floodplain to the proposed improvements shall be provided. The meets and bounds description of the approved flood hazard design elevation lines and any riparian buffer to the Bentley Brook shall be provided on the plans, along with the source, that is FEMA, NJDEP, etc., of the same. The plan shall be further revised to include a meets and bounds description for the inland flood protection rule, parens, increase of flood elevation, and add a dimension from this flood line to the proposed improvements. As currently designed, relief from this requirement appears required. To this extent, the variance design waiver list on the cover sheet shall be revised as applicable. That is old code, not required in new chapter 44 floodplain. I think that's your response. So I'm sorry, I stole your thunder.
Well, actually, my office made a mistake on that one. We are providing that. So we don't have, we're not having any improvement within 50 feet of the 100-year flood line. I think my office was just a little bit confused about that because the new regulations and the new ruling of flood hazard. And so, but we are providing that. So let's skip that
So
one.
it's complying.
We'll comply.
All right, so no disagreement. Page 6, there are no comments. Page 7, I direct your attention to item 22, which is actually an architectural comment. It says the plan shall be revised to indicate all roof drain locations along with the roof drain header pipe for the collection/conveyance of all roof runoff and the limit of each drainage area on the roof shall be documented on the architectural plans.
Number 22.
It's number 22 on page 7 of 13. Now, the architect is going to come up and testify,
We'll comply.
but the answer is we're happy to do it. And if you want him to repeat it when he comes up. we're
Yeah,
happy to
Bob,
do it.
again, that has been complied with.
Right.
Yeah.
We already complied?
Yeah, it's on the plan, yeah.
Okay. Then take a look at page 8 of 13, item 28. Says the soil logs provided are not in accordance with section 108-11.4B, paren 16 of the Code of Monroe Township. Additional test pits shall be provided or relief of same shall be sought. In the event the applicant seeks relief of this requirement, same shall be indicated on the cover sheet. It shall be noted that any relief granted of this requirement does not relieve the requirement for additional soils testing test pits as required by the BMP. And I believe that's an item for which we requested a waiver.
Yeah, we requesting a waiver. It's not on a number of logs to be performed out there. Now we follow the guidelines of the state of New Jersey that 2 years ago was put in place because green infrastructures for infiltration basins, for water quality basins, for large infiltration basins. So the number of logs so far we have done on site probably will exceed the township requirement. But the township requirement is talking about the distribution of the logs on site, which is really kind of like pertaining to single family homes, residential community that will say one per each home and stuff like that. So we figured that to be safe, we just asked for that design waiver. So you can call it design exceptions.
All right, with regard to page 9 of 13, we have no issues. We do understand that a number of these comments are required by the Delaware-Raritan Canal Control Commission. And of course, we have to obey the law. Similarly, on page 10 of 13, again, we think it's DRCC. And then on page 11 of 13, we believe the top half of that is the same. And we're going to do all of them. It's the law. Take a look at item E, relative to traffic, parking, and circulation we offer. So items 1 and 2 speak to the intersection of North Disbro Hill Road and Butcher Road, making recommendations for the intersection and making recommendations with regard to the crosswalk. And we're not adverse to that, but we simply point out it's Middlesex County Planning Board jurisdiction, and we have to obey whatever they say because they have jurisdiction over those pieces of the application. And I would now point your attention to item 6 on page 11 of 13. It says the route for tractor trailer trucks shall be shown on the location of the driver check-in, and the location and number of truck stacking spaces shall be provided. The plan shall show all proposed signage. And there's a reference to the section. And I think we're back on the same situation. Mr. Connolly?
We are, Mr. Smith, but I think what we could do is if we turn our attention to the plan, see that, as Sharif pointed out, we tuck the loading as far away from the roadway as we could possibly get, so that it doesn't interfere with the surrounding area. But the intended benefit of that is also the elongated driveway, which will allow for a significant amount of on-site queue area. So we don't know specifically what those customer use is going to be, but the design does allow for a lot of on-site stacking. So we're feeling that should substantially mitigate the possibility of anyone lining up outside of the property line.
Thank you.
Mr. Smith,
Yes, sir.
back to item number 1. We will
What page?
comply.
What page?
On the same page, 11 of 13,
Okay?
where it says county.
Yes.
If you recall, when we met with the county and Mr. Rosamo was at the meeting too, he requested that to be increased to more than 100 feet, and we will comply with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for the comment. I direct your attention to page 12. I believe we have no issues with anything on there. I would point out that the last comment on there about permits and approvals, the answer, of course, we're going to get any permit that is required. And we'll be happy to provide it to the township for their records. And I think that's the end of the memo. So as you can see, we're in agreement with at least 90%. And the other things, we're not really in disagreement. It's just that they require that we know who the tenant is. And we don't know that yet. But there's no intent to keep anything from anybody. It's not unknown at this point. Did we miss anything in that response?
I would like to just, with your permission, is to elaborate a little bit more on the permits that we need to obtain.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the township, they have, and it's a common practice in town, is that they have the Shade Tree Commission, they have the Environment Commission, they have 911, they have the police, they have the fire. We did visit each one of them. We do have an approval from a letter of recommendation from with some green infrastructure recommendation, whether it's for the site improvement and for the building, and we agreed to that. That would be the Environment Commission, so we do have their blessing on that. The fire, we already visited the fire department, and they asked for a fire hydrant to be located in certain areas by the loading docks. We agreed to that, so it's pretty much kind of like an approval from them. We have the police, we have EMS, that's as far as the town. We also visited the MUD, and we got preliminary approval, and with your if tonight was granted the approval, then we'll be going back to the MUD for tentative and final and continue with them. It's a three-way process there. Outside agency, we have a pending application with Freehold Soul District. We have another ones with the DRCC, that's the Delaware and Raritan Canal Commission. And then we already, and if you remember, at the beginning I mentioned that we do have the flood hazard verification from the state. We do have the wetlands verification also from the state. And I mentioned before that we do have the county approval. So we are way in, obtaining all of our approvals. So that's as far as the approvals and the permit that is required for a site.
Anything else you want to add, Mr. Ali? You done? That
Yes.
report?
I just want to clarify that yes, we've been working on this for almost 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. If you would
Mr.
like to
Chairman,
go
Mr.
see
Lee
it.
is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think what I heard is they basically agreed to meet most all the comments in my second review letter dated April 2nd, 2024. Couple of the items that I picked up on that you weren't in full agreement with. Item 13 on page 4 regarding the full width paving North Disbro Hill Road. Again, it is, as Sharif had said, it is newly paved. However, I'd like to reserve that upon completion of construction, we take a look at the road and any disturbances to the road or damage to the road, that we would work out the limits at the prior to final paving.
Is that acceptable to federal business?
It certainly is, yes.
Absolutely, yes. We can put a note on the plan indicating the same too.
Thank you. With regard to curb and sidewalk, you are proposing curb along the entire frontage of your property?
That is correct.
And I know you mentioned across the street on the opposite side, you're going to provide a depressed curb along the edge of the road to hold the edge of the road in.
That is correct, flush
In
curve.
addition,
Yes.
they are providing guide rail on the opposite side of the road, again, to keep vehicles on the roadway. So it would prohibit vehicles from pulling off on the edge of the road and stopping and stacking of trucks. So thank you for that. We did work extensively on that with our professionals to come up with that. Continue. Page 8, item number 28, with regard to the soil logs, they asked for a design exception. The one question I have, you will still be complying with the NJDEP best management practices?
Yes.
Thank you, and then I have no objection to that design exception. Page 11, item number E6. With regard to truck stacking, I know you don't have a tenant at this point, so the location of a gate may shift, but, and you said you have ample room for stacking the trucks. I'd just like to see that shown on the plan, on one of your drawings, the number of trucks that you would be able to stack in there. And then I'd also like to hear some testimony that the number of trucks that can stack in there is adequate for the size of the warehouse, that you won't need more stacking capacity than what's available. So perhaps your traffic engineer could comment on that.
Sure.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I have at this time. Again, they've agreed to meet the rest of the comments in my review letter, and we'll work with them to see that all the outside agencies are have granted their approvals. Thank you.
Anything?
Mr. Smith, do you want to go through CME letter, or should I just ask my questions?
So we're looking at Ms. Apte's memo to the planning board dated March 5th, 2024. And we have no issues with anything on page 1. Page 2, I'd like to just point out to the board that the third paragraph from the bottom, Ms. Apte points out that we have confirmed that the lots are to be consolidated, and it is assumed that it'll occur via deeds and approved by the planning board attorney, and the planning board right of dedication and setback lines have also been indicated on the revised site plans. So for the record, we're agreeing to that. All right. And the lot consolidation, we totally agree with. And hopefully that'll be part of any action that you take. All right. The next paragraph down, Ms. Apte points out this is a permitted use. And the next page, we have no issues. I direct your attention to page 4, where Ms. Apte asked us to tell you as much as we know about the tenant, and the best we're going to be able to do is the traffic expert with the ITE description of what you might expect. We do not disagree with her bulk table, although we might have the battle of the titans when we have the planner up to discuss those two variances and why they're not completely in agreement, but we're asking for the variances if we need them. On page 5, there's a comment about the variance with regard to a 6-foot-high sculptured undulating berm, and that will be dealt with by Ms. Gaffone. And there's also the comment that additional trees have been provided, and that's satisfactory. Also, Ms. Apte points out that we need a variance for the location of the proposed retaining wall within the buffer area, and we will provide the justification for that. On page 6, Ms. Apte points out that the variances are needed for the signs, including the location, the number and the location, and we agree with that comment. On page 7, Ms. Apte points out that the parking variance is required. I believe that Mr. Ali had pointed out what the scope of the variance is. And maybe just for the record, let me ask Mr. Conley, we're proposing these number of spaces because we believe this will more than adequately cover the parking needs of any proposed tenant, correct?
That's correct.
All right. And obviously, too, I'll be Captain Obvious. If it doesn't work for that tenant, we've got to come back to you. So you retain control of that. And the other comment for Mr. Ali, in terms of the environment, is it better to do less parking than more parking?
I would like to go back. I just remember the number of employees. There was a question on the table for the number of employees. So the township parking requirement dictate that we indicate the number of employees because of parking. So on the cover sheet, under parking requirement, you'll see 75 employees. That's what we are on the cover sheet. So that's as far as that. As far as the, is blacktop better or green is better? Well, you hear on the news every day, global warming, the state increased the number of rainfall inches per hour to close to about 13 inches, where we as a design engineer, we used to design for 8. So now we design for year 2100 because of global warming. Part of that and what the state is requiring, less pavement. If you have parking spaces of 10 by 20, make them 9 by 18. That's a standard, national recognized, less pavement. So less pavement, better. Less parking spaces, better. It's what we need. It's not what the ordinance is looking for. So it's all, again, green infrastructures, green buildings, and green improvements. That's what we have.
In a nutshell, less parking is better.
And less
if you don't
parking is
need
better.
it, right?
Yeah, if we don't need them, why we have to have them? We have a lot of parking lots out in Monroe where you drive by and you will see the empty. And you wonder, why the empty? Because it's not needed.
Okay. So I direct your attention to page 8, section V, VII, VIII, and IX, in which Ms. Apty points out that variances are required, and those are all variances that we called out and requested. Direct your attention to page 9, and there's a comment concerning fencing. A split rail fence is proposed for the top of the retaining wall. The height of the fence is not known per section so-and-so. Fences no more than 3 feet in height shall be permitted in the front yard area. Applicant should provide details to determine compliance.
And we'll comply. No more than 3 feet.
We will comply. All right, so no variance is required. I direct your attention to number 9, design requirements. The architectural plans indicate that the facade is to be composed of precast concrete or tilt-up panels with clear story windows. The facade is undifferentiated and monotonous. This is inadequate. The agricultural design should be revised to provide details, accents, or other architectural features to break up the facade. So we're going to have Mr. Kazmarski up to address that. So keep that one on hold. And number H, applicant should clarify the location of any rooftop equipment. And again, this is an architectural issue, so save those for Mr. Kazmarski. And I think we also have a line of sight exhibit to show later on.
Exactly.
So, lighting, the last thing on page 9, says the minimum lighting at any location within the parking area should be 75% of the average level, while the minimum illumination in the parking area is 0.3 foot candle. This is not 75% of the average of 2.2 foot candles provided in the parking lot. A design exception is required. And Mr. Ali, you said you were going to address that. Why should we get that variance?
Yes. So the area that we have, we're not really in compliance with the ordinance is the loading docks area. So where you have the arrow on the screen, that's the area, exactly the area, right in the middle there. So what we have there, we have an average of 0.3. And you heard Patrick is saying in his testimony that they own, they operate, they develop warehouses, and they have no issue at all as an operator with that 0.3. So, and the reason for that, if we go and decide to address the ordinance, now we're going to have to go high. So we don't want to have a giant stadium here where we have 50 feet high light pole and more intensity. And then we have neighbor on the other side of Butcher Road. So we're trying to not to have that light pollution nuisance. We want to be respectful to our neighbors, and we can live with it as a warehouse. So that's the reason for that.
Mr. Connolly, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, Mr. Ali hit it. The area in question is in the middle of the parking lot, so you can't put a pole in the middle of the parking lot, it would be hit. So you'd have to put it very high on the building or on a very high light pole. So the goal is to minimize the impact of this facility on the surrounding area. So we'd rather have less light than more, because we think it's a better design.
So anyway, that's the reasons for why we're requesting the waiver. And as the board planner points out, she defers to the board engineer. We're happy to defer to the board engineer as well. But that's the reason for the request. I direct your attention to the next page, page 10. Item III at the top of the page says, revise the plans to include timers and hours of operation. Mr. Ali, do you want to respond to that?
We will, we will comply with that.
With timers, yes.
Yeah.
The hours of
And-
operation when we know it.
Yeah, and it's already on the plan, and I already put my testimony saying that too.
Okay. Ms. Apte, in the next comment says, a dark sky approved fixture should be provided.
Yes, we will comply.
Okay. And then, on letter KI, plans must comply with section so-and-so. Applicant shall demonstrate that solid waste will be placed in metal receptacles. This has been confirmed per section so-and-so. At the end of it, she says no landscaping width is shown and a variance is required. How are we dealing with that?
Again, we're going back that we don't have a tenant. So we don't know how they're going to operate. Most of the warehouses, they have everything within the building, compactors, everything's inside the building. So-
If there is a need for an outside solid waste facility, we will come back to the staff and make sure that we're consistent with their concerns, correct?
Mr. Smith, and
Mr. Conley.
we know that the township has a great, very robust tenancy review program within the zoning department. And within that tenancy review form, we have to identify all of those items, and that would have to be signed off. So we would represent that we would comply with the township's tenancy review program.
All right, I direct everybody's attention to page 11 on landscaping. It says, in accordance with section so-and-so, the landscape plan shall be signed and sealed by a landscape architect. Waiver is required, but rather than require the waiver, we're saying we don't need that waiver, correct? We're complying?
I believe that's the case, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And,
Well, if you don't mind, I just
Yeah.
want to, I understand it's in the ordinance and we've been through this so many times. The board of professional engineer already set the rules on that long time ago. A professional engineer is allowed to do landscaping. That's in the rules there. It's very, very well defined.
all right,
So we'll
so,
Oh.
comply.
We can comply.
and engineers really can do anything. At least they believe they can. But the story is that Federal Business has a landscape, certified landscaper on the landscape architect on their team, and they'll be able to seal it, correct?
Yes, we will.
Sign?
Yep,
Okay.
who is licensed in the state of New Jersey.
All right,
Yep.
so we're no longer requesting that waiver. Item 3, the applicant has provided tree removal calculations indicating a replacement quantity of 2,546 trees. Current plans provide for a total of 312 deciduous and evergreen trees. It does not appear the applicant has submitted a revised tree removal and replacement plan, sheet 1 of 1.
Right.
Can you respond to that?
Sure. I did. So I did touch base on that before when I mentioned Mr. Lavallo, Gary Lavallo, our arborist. So that particular item should be completely deferred to Mr. Lavallo. He dictate the number of trees that will be removed and replaced, and as well as the landscaping plan. So we will wait for his review and then coordinate with CME on that. But as I indicated before, Mr. Lavallo received all the information from Amertech. Today, And he even said to me, you can say that everything is good that's been submitted. And we're just waiting for a letter from him for the number of trees and what type of trees to be on site. So he will be the guy that will be giving us that.
But that being said, I think what the board wants to hear from us is whatever the township requires, we're going to do.
Yes.
Mr. Connolly, is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. And as I pointed out, the reason for the berm variance request is we want to keep all the trees. So there's a significant number of trees that if we were to build a berm, we'd have to remove. So our intent was to leave as many trees as we possibly can.
I direct your attention to letter V. Screening is provided around all sides of the property with evergreen trees. This is satisfactory. It appears select areas of existing trees will require additional evergreen trees to provide adequate screening, especially the open area at the match line, mostly sheet 10 of 19, as well as another small section along Butcher Road and the back property line of Lot 33. Based on Google Images in 2007, the area along North Brisbane Hill was an open lawn. This is now filled in with invasive vines and shrubs. The applicant has provided additional evergreen trees as requested. Our office recommends reducing the proposed Japanese cedar along the wood line at Lot 33. All the proposed evergreen trees require sun. American holly and native tolerant evergreen should be provided instead. We agree to that, Mr. Connolly? Or not?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll
We
keep
do.
going.
Okay. I direct your attention to page 12.
Mr. Smith, in order to just assist you, I think most of these comments are just landscaping based. So if your team has read them, are in agreement with complying with it, I think we can.
Will comply as long as Mr. Lavallo said so. So he's got the upper hand.
The township.
He's the arborist. He's what everybody listens to. That's the reason we have it. Yes. The township arborist, yes. If he disagree with anything in CME report as far as the selection of a tree, he's the guy. So,
Well, first of all,
how you want to
we
address?
no longer have he's the guy. That's unacceptable. She's the gal. All right. So the bottom line, though, we understand in Monroe Township that the order of authority on landscaping is your arborist. So we're saying we're going to cooperate. Whatever the arborist wants, we're going to do.
Battery died.
As soon as we receive the review from Mr. Lavallo, we'll share it with CME. We'll do the coordination. We'll make sure everybody's happy. We're all on the same page.
Whatever the township wants.
Whatever
The
the
township
township
gets.
wants.
Does that summarize it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Ms. Apte, does that work for you?
Yeah, we noted it that we'll work with Mr. Ali and the township arborist, and I'm sure our landscaping department can come up with a solution.
Terrific. Are there any other comments, Mr. Ali, that you wish to make?
On page number 14 is the last page. 5A. We 5A, we already talked about that, the operation in the building, and we'll address that later
Right.
on.
We've
Yes,
said that on several
Yes.
occasions.
yes.
Thank you. So, Mr. Ali is available for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. In terms of, I understand this can be one tenant or two tenant. Just for our understanding purposes, currently as it's proposed, there is a proposed office space to one side of the building and the rest is going to be warehouse. That is how it's being proposed to the board and approved. In case of multi-tenants, which is maximum of two, do you envision this office space size to move and warehouse size to change?
Mr. Connolly, that's a question for you.
Again, ideally, the building, as you can see, is configured for one tenant. What we find is that there are certain warehouse uses that have almost no need for office. You can see that in some of the buildings. So we would, if there were a two-tenant situation, it would be one, we would have to have a minimum amount of office to make it work. We're just trying to provide flexibility, but we certainly would have to modify what you see there as the one office location. But the two-tenant scenario would envision somebody that would have, to have a separate office, but would be separate, and we'd have to look at what the plan would be. But ideally, we're looking for one tenant, and the flexibility of the building would lend itself that if the second tenant were interested, they would have a minimum amount of office.
Okay. Just so it's on the record, this is the office space size and this is the warehouse size. And anytime anything changes, the parking also changes. And that's the reason we want to put it on record that it remains the same.
And I think that probably would come under your tenancy review process anyway, right?
Yeah, but your parking is a variance right now, right? So just making sure that it's on the record.
Okay.
The other question I had, and I know Mr. Ali differs from my interpretation on lot depth. This is just for, again, I'm also putting it on record. Our interpretation, this property is a corner lot, but it's not your typical corner lot, which would be a rectangle. And that's why I think the definition says minimum lot frontage and the longer is lot depth. This is an irregular shaped lot, and which does have a couple of other rear yard lot line as depicted on your site plan. And we are pointing to the easterly side as the lot depth, which is, we have noted that this is an existing nonconformity and that, this is the way the lot is and that you're seeking the existing nonconformity and variance. The other item I do want to, couple of other things I want to clarify is, regarding the signage. I understand, the testimony was that one freestanding per frontage. I just want to make it sure that it's one freestanding sign per use. And that's why, the number of signs is 3:1. To clarify one more thing, the directional sign, which is the 5-foot high sign that is being proposed, and you might have already testified to that. Could you clarify why is that still needed, even though you have a corner freestanding sign? Why would you need another directional sign just proposed along the Butcher Road? And that directional sign is not illuminated, right? That one is not.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's not illuminated, yeah.
Okay.
No, it's not.
So is
So
that
the direction sign usually is placed at the beginning of the property. So in this case, if someone coming into the facility, and most likely, and you'll hear that from our traffic consulting, they will be coming from Route 33, Butcher Road. So as they coming south on Butcher Road, you'll like to direct them that the next intersection is the intersection where you need to make that left turn. So that's the purpose for that. We don't want to have a car or a trucker going all the way down. There is no way to turn if they decided to do that.
So literally the text of that sign will show them that there's a turn
That is
next
correct.
right only, or next left only to move into
Right.
the building. All right. Thank you. Just clarifying again to put it on record. I can continue. The question on dumpster, the variance is because, as you're very well aware, the refuse and recycling in our ordinance requires the three sides to have some buffer and landscaping around it. And the dumpster location as is proposed doesn't have that on one side. Is that something that can be worked out and added, or is this something, you are confident that's how the dumpster can be? It's only on one side that you need additional 5-foot buffer and some landscaping there.
Will do.
Okay. Also, in your professional opinion, the way the dumpster is located, is it maneuverable with the truck turning radius for it to be accessed and removed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. We're going to take 5 minutes for the court reporter to take a break. And just so everyone is aware, the applicant is going to put on their entire presentation before we open it up to the public.
You opening it to the public tonight?
We're hoping to.
How many more professionals have to be heard?
I think Mr. Smith said he had 5 total witnesses.
Traffic and planner. It's left.
Traffic and planner.
Oh, an architect too.
An architect.
The architect will be very short.
We're taking 5 to 10.
It's a matter.
Okay, everyone, this is what we're going to do. It's,
Yes. Let's come in.
okay, it's clear we're not going to be able to finish tonight. It's important to us that everybody that wants to be heard is heard. Your opinions matter to all of us. So we're going to go as far as we can, and we're going to stop at 10 o'clock. And then the fourth Thursday in August is our next meeting, and we're going to resume. And whatever part of this application we're at, if it's the public portion, whatever, we're going to resume at that time. So we're going to move forward. Mr. Smith has 3 more witnesses.
3, but Chairman, I think I can finish in an hour.
Okay.
Okay? So with your permission, I'd like to call our traffic expert, Mr. Eric Valoria, if he come forward and be sworn so that he can give testimony.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. State your full name, spell your last name for our record.
Eric Valoria. Eric Valoria. No.
It's not on. Just turn it on.
Saving batteries.
Eric Valoria. All right.
Much better.
Good.
Spell your last name.
V as Victor, Iloria.
All right, Mr. Valoria, for the record, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm a traffic engineer with Langen Engineering.
All right, and have you ever been accepted by this board as a traffic engineer?
This is my first time in Monroe, but I've been accepted multiple times.
I'd appreciate if you give the board the short version of your credentials.
Okay. I have my Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering from the University of Delaware. I've been preparing traffic impact studies in the state of New Jersey over the past 10 years, specifically significant amount of warehouse development, and I've appeared in front of multiple boards in the state.
So, Chairman, I'd ask that you be accepted as a traffic expert.
Yep. Credentials accepted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman. So, Mr. Valoria, in preparation for this application, you've been with the application for quite a while. Did you have occasion to perform traffic studies, even though we don't have a tenant at this point, but you do have the Bible of traffic, the ITE to refer to? Can you give the board the benefit of your studies concerning this project?
Yeah, so I'll go over a little overview of the entire study itself. So as the board's aware, we prepared a traffic impact study that has been reviewed. It's revised, dated December 22nd, 2023. It includes the warehouse development that's being supported by 154 parking spaces. Access to the development will be provided via 2 driveways along North Disbro Hill Road. The easternmost driveway will provide primary access for trucks, and the westernmost driveway will provide primary access for passenger vehicles. Both intersections and driveways have been designed in accordance to accommodate the design vehicles for the respective driveways. Both driveways will be stop controlled as well. To account for and determine how our traffic will affect the roadways in the area, we conducted capacity analysis at 9 intersections in the surrounding area. That includes 8 intersections between Route 33 and Disbro Hill Road to the south. And we also looked at our site driveways. In order to do this, we had to conduct traffic counts. We conducted those in June of 2023 when schools were in session. They were on a typical weekday during the commuter morning peak hours and the evening peak hours. Those volumes were then grown to account for your typical general background growth in the area, and then also the traffic associated with other approved developments in the area as well. We actually accounted for 3 other developments too. Then to account for our traffic, as has been stated, we utilize the Institute of Transportation Engineers, otherwise known as ITE, their trip generation publication, which is currently in their 11th edition. We utilize Land Use Code 150, which is for warehousing. And as has been mentioned many times, it's for speculative warehouses, which accounts for a variety of different type of users. These volumes were then, we had to pick between which trip generation estimates to utilize. We specifically utilize the peak hour of the generator, which looks at when the warehouse will generate the most traffic. And we applied those rates to get the trip generation and then put them onto the roadway. In order to distribute those trips to the roadway, we had to do two different things. For passenger vehicles, we had to do a journey to work model, which takes into account the Census Bureau data and looks at where employees are expected to be coming to and from. So we generated those distributions and applied the trip generation to those. And then for trucks, as has been mentioned, the Route 33 corridor provides direct access to the national network, which is the New Jersey Turnpike. So it's a direct access for trucks to be able to go to and from the ports and other areas in New Jersey. And yeah. And then we took those volumes and utilizing our capacity software analysis, we input everything in there and we input the volumes, the traffic associated with our project and all the growth I had previously spoke about. And we conduct this analysis to determine how the intersections will operate. Based on our analysis, we determined that the trips associated with our warehouse won't significantly impact operations in the area. We also, as has been mentioned, as part of the redevelopment, we are providing a southbound left turn lane along Butcher Road, which has been coordinated with the county. The left turn lane will allow for vehicles to bypass the vehicles turning left without affecting flow along Butcher Road. We also performed a site plan review. As Mr. Lee has testified to, the circulation and overall site has been designed in accordance with industry standards and will provide efficient circulation for all the types of vehicles that are expected to come onto the site, whether it be emergency vehicles or other types of trucks as well. We also looked into the parking, and based on the ITE parking generation, we anticipate that the average demand will be accommodated by the parking being provided. It's actually, we anticipate 65 vehicle parking spaces being required on an average, and the surplus is for shift turnovers to allow for no overflow to occur. That's the main summarization of my traffic study, and I'd be open to any questions you guys may have.
Mark, Mika, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With regard to the Butcher Road left turn lane, how many tractor trailers will be able to stack on that left turn lane?
At this time, we designed it for a 100-foot storage area, which will allow for one truck. So when I'll go into trip generation, I know that was asked about earlier too, the exact amount of trips. So right now, during the weekday AM peak hour, we anticipate approximately 48 total vehicles to enter and exit the site, 32 entering and 16 exiting. And then
Excuse me. Let the applicant make his, Mr. Smith, continue with. You'll have your opportunity. You will have your opportunity.
We will quote.
Sir, you spoke about property prior to our arrival at this meeting. Could you backtrack for 1 minute?
You're not sworn in. You can't speak. You're not sworn in. Just let the application go forward. You'll have your opportunity.
At the 53-foot tractor
Yeah,
trailer.
ma'am,
Ma'am.
ma'am.
One tractor trailer.
Ma'am, respectfully, please let the applicant continue.
So, Mr. Valeria, I'd appreciate if you would go over the stacking and why you think it may or may not be appropriate, and if there's flexibility with regard to that.
Of course. So as I had mentioned, we had spoke with the county and coordinated with them on what they anticipated would be necessary for this stacking. And based on our projections, as I had mentioned, we used a peak hour of the generator. So we looked at the most conservative amount of trucks and vehicles that could enter and exit the site.
By conservative, I mean the highest number.
Correct.
Okay, and I think what maybe the public doesn't understand. When you say the peak hour, you're meaning that's the number of trips that occurs over 60 minutes, correct?
Correct.
So it's not like everybody is lined up at one moment.
That is correct.
All right, so go into that in a little more detail.
So I'll break down the trucks a little more. During the weekday AM peak hour, we anticipate 11 trucks. So in that hour span, 11 trucks either entering or exiting the site. Based on the ITE data, it's about 4 entering, 7 exiting. In the PM, it's about 6 entering and 5 exiting, 11 trips during the hour as well. That's about 1 truck every 9 minutes in every direction. So it's not going to take a truck, or a truck will come in approximately 1 every 9 minutes.
Let the application go forward, please.
And then to further verify that, based on our analysis, we do input all types of trucks, cars, and peak hour factors that determine the capacity at that specific intersection. Based on our analysis, the queue anticipated for that left turn lane will be maintained by what we're proposing.
So to cut to the chase on the left turn lane, will that be able to accommodate 2 tractor trailers? That's what we talked about with the county.
With the additional, so there's 100 feet of storage, and then there's an additional taper that will allow for the truck to fit within there as well. So 2
We'll have
trucks.
2 trucks.
Yes.
Thanks. So the intersection of Route 33 and Butcher Road, you indicated that you did do a study over there?
Yes. So we analyzed that intersection for capacity as well.
Thank you. I'm fine with the capacity analysis. However, trucks coming from the turnpike heading east on 33, making a right turn onto Butcher Road, did you analyze the turning radius that exists out there, and if tractor trailers are going to be able to make that right-hand turn without crossing into the opposite lane of traffic?
So the intersection is currently under the jurisdiction of New Jersey Department of Transportation. They typically design their intersections to allow for these tractor trailers to utilize them appropriately. It's not something we directly looked at, but we would be willing to look into.
All right.
It's not possible. It's not possible to make a turn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, continue, please.
So, for everybody to understand what's going on, we all have to listen to each other. When the public gets up to ask questions, we're going to respond to them.
Right.
And when they have comments to make, we're going to listen to them. We'd ask for the same courtesy.
Right. We will let every member of the public say whatever they want to when the time is right. Let the application complete, please.
So, trying to get you back on the track. If you'd respond to the concerns expressed by Mr. Razumovitz.
Was there anything else you?
So I would just like to see a turning radius on that you can accommodate that, and any meetings with NJDOT on that. I would certainly like an invite that the township can be there. My office and the planner if necessary.
And federal business has no issue with that. And if we can, maybe we can try to get a quick turning radius into the town to take a look at it.
Absolutely.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Nothing else.
I don't have any.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
This time.
Quick question on North Disborough Hill Road. The turning a left into there, is there going to be a left lane and then people can go and
So southbound on
there's a
Butcher Road.
stacking there?
On Butcher Road?
Yeah.
Yes, there's a
No, not
proposed.
Butcher, North Disborough,
There,
where the entrance is to the site.
into the driveways, there's not a left turn lane proposed.
No left-hand lane? Won't that stop traffic? I mean, won't it build up traffic?
I can't take down what they're saying if the public is speaking, so everybody needs to.
You'll get your opportunity, I promise you.
Guys, what is this?
It's,
Thank you.
I'm not sure I'm understanding where you're.
After you turn off of Butcher Road onto North Disborough Hill Road, that's where the entrance is to the site, right?
Okay. We are,
Trucks, for the trucks.
we're not proposing left turn lanes into the driveways, and Mr. Connolly would explain more why.
Well, the issue with widening North Disbrow is that the property that's to the south of North Disbrow is a protected wetland area, and it would be illegal to actually extend the pavement into that side. With respect to widening on the opposite side would then again impact the front yard. So we are proposing widening the road as part of our improvements, but to widen it to such a degree to make it a two-lane road, so to speak, with that is not feasible.
So that's North Disbrow Road.
On
That's
nor-
where the entrance and.
on
exit-
North Disbrow. So for Butcher, when you're coming from Route 33 and you're making a left on the North Disbrow, there will be a left turn lane because there's a significant amount of traffic, as the residents will know, on Butcher. There is a significant less amount of traffic on North Disbrow Hill. So we don't feel that it's necessary because of the traffic count that we're going under, that it would be necessary. But we wanted to provide it on Butcher because that's where a predominant amount of the transient traffic that's coming down off of 33 going into the residential areas. But knowing the area quite well, North Disbrow is not a heavily traveled road. So that's why we thought it was still a good design.
Mr. Chairman, I have some questions.
Benzura.
I have several questions. Please do not interrupt my questions and allow the people to answer. Okay? All right, let me start. I have a couple of simple ones. One of the first things, there's a driveway entrance from North Disbrow for the tractor trailers, right? Can you tell me how long of a distance it is from North Disbrow Road to the back of the parking lot?
Length of the drive, truck drive.
It's approximately 700 feet.
So that would accommodate quite a few.
Significant
trucks that
amount,
were- Might be
correct.
queuing. There would be no way to queue on North Disbrow Road because you have the railing on the right-hand side, correct? Now, when you conducted your you have no idea what type of business is going to be in here, correct?
Correct.
I do understand you relied on what they call the ITE, which is some type of basic standard that you use in trying to reach a projection. Now, are there ranges within the ITE as to between X amount and a greater amount and a lesser amount anticipated?
So you're talking building size?
No, I'm not talking building. I'm talking about number of vehicles that would be,
Of course.
entering.
Yeah, so it's based on the size of the building or employee. For this site, we use the square footage of the building as our variable.
And we anticipate, somewhere I saw someone said 75 people, perhaps,
Correct. That was the,
testimony was?
yes.
Okay, but it could be more. You have parking spaces for more. You don't know, right?
So you have found the basic conundrum, which is we don't know who the tenant's going to be. The reason that you had a larger parking number, if you remember the testimony of Mr. Ali.
I'm not concerned about the amount of parking. I'm concerned about the amount of vehicles that are going to be coming in and out of this roadway. And at particularly rush hour when there's already a lot of traffic in the area. So when you say, you said before, you said before that you thought 32 in, 16 out at peak hour? I heard that testimony.
Correct.
Now, does that, out of that 32, how many would you anticipate trucks? How many would you anticipate cars?
4 trucks entering in the morning and then the 28 vehicles exiting.
In 1 hour, in a 1 hour time
Correct.
frame? Now, that's coming in.
Correct.
How about going out at that time?
16 total, so you would have 11 vehicles and 7 trucks.
Okay, but again, you don't know exactly, the nature of the business will determine how many are going in and out.
Correct.
That's a huge variable.
So as part of the application, we also submitted supplemental traffic information where we actually looked at 3 warehouses in the state. And we had looked at them to determine if the size was relative to the amount of trips. And what we found was ITE actually is significantly higher than the warehouses that we see in the state of New Jersey.
Listen, I don't know, where were those warehouses?
To be exact, they were in Florence, Burlington, and Mansfield.
Right. Why don't you pick Cumberland County and another one down south where there's nothing? This is Middlesex County. This is right in the center of things. I don't believe that that's a fair assessment based on those types of warehouses, considering what we're going to have in our county. Now, I have another simple question, and I think the answer is simple. Whenever anyone exits the proposed warehouse area, whichever driveway it is, the only way that they could reach Route 33 is by going north Brisboro, making the right onto Butcher Road and going up to Route 33, correct?
Correct.
In other words, you can't go north Disboro in another direction and somehow hook around the 33.
Correct. Well,
Or not reasonably speaking,
Correct.
anyhow.
Correct.
Okay. And again, depending on what type of business you have, you might have multiple employees arriving at the same time. Like if hours were 9 to 5, there might be more people coming at once versus a varied time for arrival, depending on the business. And we don't know that because we don't know what kind of business it's going to be. And then when they come up here, they make that right onto Butcher Road. And in the morning hours, or even at the rush hour in the evening, you come up to that traffic light at 33 that you started to talk about, right?
Correct.
Now, we have concerns about whether trucks would be able to turn in off of 33, given how wide their turn may be. And Butcher Road, if I recall, is not a particularly wide road. But I also have a lot of concerns about any discussions that you had with the state about any improvements to that traffic light there. It already gets backed up in the morning, and that's without tractor trailers, without other vehicles. I would like to be satisfied that all the residents in the area are not going to be significantly affected by the way, vehicles will be coming in and out of there. And I mean, even if it was 2 or 3 tractor trailers coming in an hour, they get stuck at that light. That's a long light, first of all. And then they get stuck there and people are trying to get to work in the morning. I think it's problematic. And I'd like to know that there was some discussion with the state somehow, some way, whether it involves another lane on Butcher Road, whatever it may be, to make it so that the individuals who live in the area are not significantly impacted in the morning. And I don't know, I'm not hearing anything that tells me that that's being addressed.
So analysis-wise, we look at it the same way we would for any project. We analyze it based on the timings that the state uses at that intersection, and we input volumes based on what's existing. We grow them for the traffic that could be in the future and the traffic associated with our development. We then input them in the same software, and we look at what the difference is, the change, and the change in what we saw is insignificant to what this development.
Let me ask you, what's your definition of insignificant? Because I'm feeling it's going to differ from what the vast majority of the audience thinks.
So based on ITE and both the New Jersey Department of Transportation, they define a significant amount of trips as 100 or more trips during a peak hour, entering an intersection.
So let me just see if I understand exactly what you're saying. The only way that you will say that it becomes a significant problem is if there's 100 or more additional trips in an hour?
That is just what they look at as a significant increase to traffic. It doesn't mean that there are not issues that may arise, but that is what the definition of significant impact.
I understand that they have definitions in books and things of that nature, but does that draw for a distinction whether it's if it's 100 tractor trailers, it's a lot different than if it's 100, cars, transportation.
And all that information is inputted into our analysis. It is taken into account. We don't cut any corners to remove trucks during the analysis, so it does take into account the time it takes for a truck to start up versus a passenger vehicle to start up. So it does take into account all those numbers.
Now, you told us you have a left turn lane coming from Butcher Road, so that they can make the left on the North Disbro. What about coming out of North Disbro for people or trucks that want to make a right? Is there going to be an additional right-hand lane or something to assist them?
As Mr. Connolly had explained, we can't widen North Disbro Hill Road and
Not north, I'm talking about Butcher Road.
to provide a left turn.
No, right. People coming from North Disbro, making a right turn to go north on Butcher Road, can we do anything to widen Butcher Road over there to ease that congestion? Because that's really going to be the spot. People telling you people are not going to be able to get out of there in the mornings. Quiet, please. Quiet. Is there anything? I mean, did the county say anything about that?
So based on our analysis, we determined that, again, the relative impact at that intersection would still allow for people to have the appropriate gaps to make the turns.
I'm not worried about the turn from North Disbro onto Butcher. What I'm worried about is once they get onto Butcher, the backup there. So I'd like to see if there could be some lane, toward the right that would allow other vehicles that are on Butcher to bypass tractor trailers that are turning onto the roadway. Is that possible?
So the answer to that, Mr. Van Zora, is that Butchers County, we're happy to work with Mr. Razumovitz and the county to see what can be done. All right, you've expressed a concern, but ultimately the jurisdiction is Middlesex
It is a
County.
county road, you're right. I'm just trying to, I see all these people here, and I think I can anticipate some of their questions, if not all of their questions, and I'm pretty sure that that's a big concern, is the coming out and trying to get on from Butcher onto Route 33 with all the additional traffic that's going to be come out of there, particularly if there's large vehicles. Just saying. All right, well, you answered. It is a county thing. One other thing on a side note, because I think I've kind of beat the dead horse there. You having 6 or 7 EV stations, you said?
7 make ready, yeah.
Out of a total of 65 projected spaces, maybe, or 54?
154.
All right. If there was a need for it, would more be installed if, depending on your tenants? Certainly, I think EVs are going to increase in the future, and we're already at that point. I know that this is what it calls for, and it's not something I could require you to do, but I think as a good faith gesture, we should keep it open, because now is a time when more and more is coming forward, and there's more EVs out there. So if there's some need for it, I'd like to see the opportunity to expand it if it was requested.
Sure. I guess what we would do is work with your professionals to understand. What we would do is whatever is kind of mutually agreed to, we would go with their guidance as to what we would call make-ready EV spaces, which essentially runs all of the conduit and everything would be ready. So we would be open to that. We certainly endorse the EV component as part of it. So yes, we would certainly take that into the design consideration. With respect to Butcher, we'll look at it and, see what the county would recommend and, can give you that assurance.
I think Butcher Road is a problem, and it's a problem that may have pre-existed your application. It may have had nothing to do with you, because already it's not wide enough for what's what's needed to be accommodated. And these people sit here every morning trying to wait for a light, 3, 4 lights when they're trying to get to work in the morning. But there's no doubt in my mind that this is going to aggravate the situation, and it's problematic for the citizens of the town. So. I'm not saying I know the solution. I'm not an engineer, but I think it would behoove us to have further contact with the county about possibly doing something.
Chairman.
Excuse me. Please.
Mr. Resimo has something to say.
Mr. Chairman, the councilman brings up some excellent points. I would ask that I be invited to that meeting with the county. I want to be present when you meet with them to discuss that. And back to the intersection at Route 33, I request that we have a meeting with the state and I be part of that meeting. I understand from your point of view and requirements under both the state requirements and the traffic requirements for the ITE, but there's been so much development out in that intersection. You know, before you, there may be some coming after you, and each time the applicant sits there and says, we don't meet that criteria. We don't meet 100 trips. But as the development is happening out there, each development is not meeting 100 trips, but in cumulative to that intersection, now it is getting increased in that intersection. I don't know that the state is really looking at that, so I'd like to be down there with you to meet with the state and to see how we can address the situation out there.
Yeah, you know, maybe we can turn this into a positive for the people. If something could be done with the road and you guys could be a part of it, and with the county and the state taking a little bit of leeway, it might make the road bigger. That, you know, solves a lot of problems for everybody. But that's all I'm saying.
Chairman? These particular intersections, or without this project being considered, not look at the traffic from 33 to Monroe Manors Jessica Drive, morning to evening, 3 times the buses comes, which is 6 times actually, drop-off pickup. Parents going for different drop-off pick-up activities of the children's because the 2 schools are there. So if you see morning or you ask the Monroe Police Department, what is the situation over there? Accident or hazardous conditions from the 33 Wawa till the Jessica Drive. 2 things are not considering this, the width of the North Disbrough Hill Road to go with the 18-wheelers. In this, wherever we are mentioning the truck, I'm considering that as a 18-wheeler truck. Am I right? Yes. Truck and trailers. So regardless who will be your future tenant. So please consider the Butcher Road's existing width, considering the North Bistro Hills width for those kind of heavy vehicular commercial traffics. Second thing, at present, North Bistro Hill Road is through pass towards the residential area to go all the way to the Manalapan, and which is mostly a through passers, but mostly private cars. So going up to your frontage of your property, the proposed project, if you see any trucks waiting to make a left turn inside the truck driveway, you know how many cars will be backed up, private cars going residence. So this is, we have to be respectful towards the neighbors at least. It is an end property and I can say zone part of the Monroe and starting the Manalapan or Millstones or anything. Why I'm telling you this? This is an everyday situation. I pass from there few times a week and I see that particular the intersection, merge and junction of the North Bistro Hill and Butcher. Every morning is a situation over there. So 18-wheelers is a catch and turning road width is not at least enough or ample. Right turn, left turn lanes are the dedicated lanes which he addressed. But I'm talking at present the width as it is not suits to the trucks.
That's a 26 feet.
Understood.
That's one. Second thing you mentioned about the retainer walls and all that thing. Hope that meets the compliance of the floods or anything from the front when you do the site work and everything. But that is a secondary. But frontage is the one where you are going to put your signs and all that, which looks like a commercial sign for the corner property. Signage.
Wait, what's the question about the signage? I'm sorry.
Signage will come on the corner, right? Which is meeting the code and everything.
So right. So that was kind of what we were covering early. The signage will start on the inbound side, midway up Butcher. And then the idea is to have also signs at each of the two entrances so that we clearly identify the auto entrance and the truck entrance, so there's no misunderstanding, so they don't miss those turns. So we've proposed 3 signs, and that's a variance. So rather than take the minimal approach and comply, we said, no, we need more than that. So if there was additional signage needed, we would be interested. But we thought that the 3 signs would help educate someone coming in to make the right
But that
maneuvers.
is not the property sign, right? It is a signage for the direction.
The signs that we're talking about would be for, it would have the address, the name of the occupant, but also would say auto entrance, with an arrow, the name, the address, the name of the customer, and then truck. So I would say it would be a combination of the two.
The driver purpose only, not it is a nuisance to the apartment buildings which are there.
Correct. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. Most of my questions have been already put forth. The one thing I wanted to know is about the environmental impact in a residential area like that. It's like with all these backups, and even though you're saying that there's not a significant problem until 100 cars or 100 vehicles an hour, but it's like even if there's not 100 vehicles, there's then with all the idling, there's a lot of increased pollution or emissions during that time, and so I want to know what your thoughts on that.
So let me ask Mr. Valoria, does the state of New Jersey have anti-idling laws?
Yes.
And what do they require?
That the trucks don't idle along a roadway.
All right, and how about on the property itself?
No, as well.
So would an appropriate suggestion from the board to be to make sure you post notice of no idling, what the state law is, so that drivers would be aware, and also the landlord has some ability to enforce that as well, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So, as you heard, we're going to encourage the, EV for the auto. EV is a future goal, I think, of the nation for trucks, but it's not there yet. But as it relates to this for the truck traffic, we would comply with all of the laws associated with those requirements and do so in our other locations. But, we can't, we would not be disingenuous to sit here and say that the tractor trailers, don't have emissions. But we created a building that hopefully doesn't try to develop the site. As was testified earlier, and as you could see on the screen, the building does not, overly impact the site. So, but the fact of the matter is, we want to be honest with your question, is that there will be emissions from vehicles, just like they are up and down Route 33 right now. At the Wawa situation, there are vehicles, but we will make sure that as far as we're able to control it, that they will comply with the law.
Just a couple of things. First, I want to circle back to a couple of things in your testimony.
Mm-hmm.
First, can you go over again? You said the peak hours, the morning peak hour and the evening peak hour. What are those hours?
So typical morning peak hours are between 7 and 9, and during the evening, they're between 4 and 6.
And in those hours, your calculations of how many trucks total per hour?
For our site?
Yes.
So during the AM, 11 for both AM and PM.
So you say 11 per hour or in that window?
in an hour. So specifically, so
11 per hour in each of those 2 hours that are the peak hours.
So we looked at what is considered the peak operation of this warehouse. So in 1 hour during the day, this warehouse will experience its most traffic. So it's not going to experience that every single hour during that peak hour. So sometime during the 7 to 9 period and 4 to 6 period, there will be this hour where the most traffic is expected to enter and exit.
So it's on a sliding scale, basically, is what you're saying. You don't know which hour, but within that window of 7 to 9 in the morning, at some point, there's going to be a 60-minute block where the max estimated truck traffic is going to be 11 hours within that heaviest 60-minute window.
11 trucks, yes.
11 trucks, yes. Okay.
And just to further your comment, in some studies, you can particularly look at a network peak. So we could have said in this specific quarter, 7 to 8 is the peak. But for this study, we actually looked at the peak at each individual intersection. So we looked at when that specific intersection experiences the most traffic during those 2 hours, and then put our traffic on top of that.
Now, the other question, a couple of points I have, or questions, is with regard to your calculations, you talked about what were your variables and what were your fixed items. And we talked about, or I should say, you talked about in your testimony, you looked at square footage, you
Correct.
looked at employees.
Correct.
And those factors are where using those, without knowing who the tenant is, you arrived on your calculations.
Correct.
Okay. So essentially, whether the warehouse is housing carburetors or flower pots or widgets, so many manpower hours based on employees and square footage of the facility, you don't believe there's going to be much divergence in the amount of traffic coming in based on how much a person or so many persons within so much time based on the size of the facility could move in and out. Is that correct?
Correct.
Is there any degree of divergence that you consider?
So ITE actually has 5 subcategories that they separate for warehouses, and we specifically picked 150, Land Use Code 150, because it accumulates more of a variety of different types of tenants and users, and it tends to have the higher trip generation to make sure that we're looking at the most conservative analysis.
Okay. And then with that, I mean, there's a bit of a conundrum. I think it's clear, and other members of the board have already spoken about, there's obviously a sensitivity because of congestion, particularly on Butcher Road, and that this can contribute further to exacerbate the condition. So, yet at the same time, we also understand that this is a permitted use. Warehouses are permitted in the zone, and obviously with warehouses comes truck traffic to some extent. That's what warehouses draw and use. So the question I have is would the applicant be willing perhaps to work with our staff about perhaps, since we don't know who the tenants are and the applicant is not telling us and doesn't know who the tenants are going to be, would they be willing to agree as some type of conditional language if our staff was in line with this about perhaps in the leases limiting the amount of truck traffic per hour to the facility? So this way there could be some type of restriction on that or limitation so it doesn't get out of hand.
So the shortcut answer is no, but with reasons. And the reasons are you have no idea who the tenant's going to be or what their use is. I would point out to you that Monroe Township and South Brunswick Township approved a 1.2 million square foot warehouse. It went to both towns, and it ended up that Home Depot rented the space, and there's 25 trucks a day in this 1.2 million, because all Home Depot does is to store white goods, appliances, all right? So trying to predict the future, not so easy to do. That being said, you have a tenancy review process, and once we know the tenant, you know, if we're lucky enough to get an approval, the number one, your town professionals still retain jurisdiction, and if there are, because of the tenant's use, there's something unreasonable or something crazy or unsafe, they get a chance to weigh in. All right, so that's why you can't say yes to that dress. It's predicting the future, and generally, none of us are very good at that.
Understood. Thank you.
You know, I wasn't clear. You know, it's like your IT model is predicting traffic flow for one tenant, right?
It leaves it open to a speculative warehouse, which could allow for more than one tenant.
Okay, so, you know, it's like with one tenant, you know, so you can say your peak flow and everything is a certain amount. With two tenants, you know, it's like, would that double or more than double exacerbate the situation?
So within the ITE data, it accounts for all types of warehouse uses, tenants. It's throughout the entire country. It's not, so it takes into account a bunch of data points, and it takes the variable specific to what we're generating for. So a 2-tenant warehouse, they'll still take the variable based on the size, and they'll generate the traffic based on what that warehouse is generating. So even though it's a 2-tenant warehouse, it's still, for the record purposes, it's 100,000 square feet. That 100,000 square foot warehouse is still generating X amount of trips, which the data is inputted into the database. So it's still looking at the single variable.
Or just to be helpful, 2 tenants does not mean double traffic.
Correct.
It's the number of square feet and employees that generally
Correct.
does it. And this is based on data from all over the country. You're not talking about 3 inputs. You're talking about tens of thousands of inputs, correct?
100.
I just have one more. This is a different topic, no, not as intense, but you talked about lighting and trying to be good neighbors for for the people around, and I think you said that the lighting would be on some type of switch where it was shut off at like 10 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, sir, it would be, but it's also would be motion activated. So if there was a need for someone to enter the property, it would be motion activated. The zone, you know, obviously allows for use, but the purpose would be to have it shut off when there's no traffic or no need.
What if the tenant wanted a 24-hour operation?
I would defer to Mr. Smith, but I think that's the zone allows for it. Then the motion sensors would activate when there's activity.
Remember, the request for the waiver is for lower lighting intensity. So at a starting point, you're going to be doing lower than the town requires right now. The point is to provide some relief.
I raised the point of the lighting in terms of the hours of operation, because it sounded like you anticipated everything being done by a particular time. And if we can't put restrictions on tenants in terms of numbers of trucks and things, you're probably not going to put restrictions on them in terms of the hours of operation either. And that's another additional thing that the townspeople are going to be worried about. Tractor trailers coming by in the middle of the evening. You know, that's not a pleasure either. Just saying. All right.
Anything
All
else?
I had.
Okay.
Chairman, should I bring up my next witness?
Witness, please.
And ask that Mr. Ron Kazmarski come forward. He's our architect. We'd like him sworn so he can give testimony.
Where did tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
State your full name and spell your last.
Ron Kazmarsky, and that's Kacmarsky.
So we have an architectural exhibit that we'd like to pass around to the board. It would be part of Mr. Kazmarsky's testimony. Are these, does the board have them in the package, or is this new stuff?
So what we'd like to point out is that in the CME report, I think there was a notation relative to the elevations and that the fact that they probably didn't give the pizzazz that was being looked for. I believe we submitted a revised set at the TRC. For the purposes of assurance and completeness, this is that set. It's a 2-page set. I'll put it on the board as well so that the audience could see, but.
So we think it's been submitted, but we're happy to mark it.
A3.
8A3
3.
and 4, it's 2 pages.
Got A1. Oh. Yes, and now A3 and 4.
That works.
Good.
A4.
Call it A4,
Second one.
the second page, so A3, A4. All right. Was Mr. Kazmarsky sworn?
Yes.
No.
Just.
Yes.
Okay, so for the record, Mr. Kazmarsky, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
Page 2. Okay. So Ronald Kazmarsky Architectural Group is my company.
And have you ever been accepted by this board as a, what?
I have not.
All right, can you give us the short version of your credentials?
Okay. So I graduated in 1989 from NJIT, which is New Jersey Institute of Technology. I have a bachelor's in architecture. I received my architectural license in 1997 to practice architecture in New Jersey. Been practicing for 28 years. I have not had the pleasure of testifying before this board, but I've testified in front of numerous boards in various municipalities throughout the state.
Right, you're a registered architect in the state of New Jersey?
Correct.
Okay, I'd ask that he be accepted as an architect.
Accepted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what is it going to look like?
Okay, so it's a 176,000 square foot earth tone precast concrete building, of which 9,000 square feet is office. The office has significant glass, and that in the corner of the building, you think you saw on the floor plan, the lower left corner of the building would have the office area. And that extensive glass would allow for natural light to go into the office area, also accentuate the entrance of the building. And as you saw on the site plan, that entrance is adjacent to the main entrance from the road. Now, for the most part, the building itself is really not visible from the road, given the existing tree line that's there now. So both Butcher and North Disbrow, for the most part, the building is screened, so you really won't see the building for the most part. However, that entrance in the corner being adjacent to the entranceway, especially as you approach the building, you would have there would be a view corridor to see that corner of the building. And then as you approach the building, you would see that corner with the glass detail. And then as for the other elevations of the building, and this represents a modification based on a comment. So what we did is we have a 2-tone, earth tone building design, and along, you can see the facade is elongated. And to break up that rhythm, we've designed the vertical second color patterns with the clear story windows and the seams in the concrete to add character along the facade of the building. And as you can see too, so the elevations which show the office area in the corner represent the buildings which face the street. The third one from the top is the truck queue elevation of the building. And then the bottom elevation drawing shown shows all the tailboard loading docks, and that's in the rear of the building, so none of that is visible from the street.
And then another comment that we had was with the HVAC equipment on the building. So the combination of the parapet roof and, okay, great, this illustration shows it, and the sight line from the street, no equipment would be visible on top of the building.
I believe that was part of the CME review, so we wanted to make sure we covered that as well.
Anything else you want to add, Mr. Kazmierski?
I'm sorry?
Anything else you want to add?
No, that's pretty simple.
Mr. Kazmierski is available for questions.
Thank you.
Oh, Council. Yes.
Sure, Mika.
In terms of the HVAC, would you be willing to provide us where the equipment would be located on the roof plan? Because I know the elevation shows us, and
Sure.
the arrow is pointing to the center. We just want to make sure it's.
Yep, sure.
Thank you.
Certainly, we'd make a condition of the approval that there would be no HVAC equipment that would be visible from the street.
Thank you.
I have a quick question. Any thought given to solar panels on the roof of the warehouse?
Well, I'm sitting next to Mr. Solar here. So certainly our construction would have the structural capacity built within it to do the rooftop solar. The limitations of solar are, significant in terms of how much we're allowed to produce and turn back to the grid. But it is certainly something that would be beneficial. So, when we would get a future tenant, certainly the solar would be a viable thing that gets offered. But you really can't size the solar array until you know who the occupant is, because right now you can't really, there's not capacity within the grid structure to return more than a significant amount out. But so we endorse that for this project, especially in light of we have the EV charger. And I should point out that the 100% of the building would be LED lighting as well. So that's kind of a standard for us now too. But so although we don't have it shown here because we wouldn't know the size of the array that would be, but certainly would be amenable for it.
Not anything I would require, but it would be something that would be appreciated if it could be possibly implemented in the future. That's all. Thank you.
I have a question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Will there be any access to the roof? Will they have to have
That's
a need
internal.
to be on the roof?
Yeah, so there's a roof hatch inside the building for roof
Inside?
access. Yep.
From inside, okay.
Yeah, we find that is a safer way to do it. It's inside, and you can actually have like a rest area, and it's secure from the elements, so that you don't have to worry about it being outside.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see the ramp on this drawing. Is it?
So it is ADA accessible, the building, and the entrance is at grade. You can see that. You have the illustration of the
I see the
facade.
incline, but
Going just a little too far. Let's see.
Can you zoom into that?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So it would be adjacent to the handicap parking.
Let me just zoom out 1 second. It's going to zoom out 1 second. So the handicap ramp would be right here. Yeah.
And that's adjacent to the office area.
Yeah, exactly. So the spaces that are the ADA spaces are the closest to the ramp, even though they're not the closest to the entrance. It's that those spaces that are closer to the entrance are at a different elevation. So the ADA spaces you see are at the base of the ramp and the closest spaces to the front entrance.
Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Smith, you can call your next witness.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, our last witness is our professional planner, Christine Cafone. I'd ask that she be called and sworn so that she can give testimony.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
State your full name and spell your last name, please.
It's Christine with a CHRISTINE, Cofone, COFONE. Business address is 125 Half Mile Road, Suite 200, Red Bank, New Jersey, 07701.
And go ahead.
Testifying this evening as a licensed professional planner. I have been qualified here in Monroe before both your planning and zoning boards, as well as about 400 or so other planning and zoning boards throughout the state. I've been practicing for 28 years now. My licenses are current and valid. I teach.
You're accepted.
Oh, thank you.
I don't even have to ask her the questions. Ms. Cafone, you've studied this project, I'm sure, intensely. Your purpose tonight is to provide the board with the justification under the municipal land use law to grant the bulk variances. We're not interested in the use variance tonight. We're permitted use, but the bulk variances that are requested, and also, if you can, some justification for the waivers.
Of course. Yes. So as Mr. Smith indicated, we are a completely conforming use. And what that means, and I know, Chair, you asked earlier, tell us what the HD Highway Development District is all about. What does that mean? So what that means is that the Highway Development District, I would say, is probably one of the more permissive zoning districts in Monroe, and that there are a number of uses that are permitted there, intensive commercial uses. They list out 13 permitted uses ranging from businesses and professional offices to regional shopping centers, automobile showrooms, of course, wholesale, distributive, and storage establishments, fully enclosed establishments for the sale and repair of machinery, and it lists out additional conditional uses such as funeral homes, public transportation, car washes, hospitals, shopping centers, and the description in the master plan reads, the Highway Development District is in the southern region of the township along New Jersey State Route 33. The district promotes a diverse mix of commercial and light industrial uses that have a regional market for goods and services reaching beyond Monroe's boundaries. So that's the stated district. So certainly the intent of this district is to be a permissive commercial area.
For the benefit of the court reporter, can you just slow down a little bit?
Sure. Yes. So that's the stated purpose and intent of the zoning district. And I think if you look at the applicant's proposal, we're very much aligned with that. The other thing that we're very much aligned with are the bulk criteria. Mr. Ali went through those extensively, and they are outlined in your professional's review letter. There is not one single bulk criteria that we are violative of. And why that's important is because we are seeking some bulk variances, which I'll get into. But as far as the intensity of the application, we meet the height. You heard Mr. Ali tell you that the floor area ratio. So what that is the floor area ratio in the zone that's permitted is 0.40, so 40%. We're at 0.15. And what that means is that is the total ratio of the proposed building square footage as it relates to the size of the property. Similarly, we are well under the permissible coverages for this zoning district. We're allowed a total impervious coverage of 60%. We're at 28.9. We're allowed building coverage of 35%. We're at 16.5. So I just wanted to set the tone for my testimony and frame what the applicant is proposing against what is intended and envisioned for this zoning district, because I think that that's important. Statutorily, we are seeking a number of variances. I believe there are 11 of them, and they were identified by Mr. Smith in his opening statements, as well as Mr. Ali, but I can go through them again. The first variance that we're seeking, if it's determined, and I believe it is Ms. Apte's position that it is for the minimum lot depth of 417 feet, where your ordinance requires 500 feet. I think it's important to take notice of the fact that the way lot depth is defined here in your code in Monroe, and that's important because how you define lot depth here in Monroe may be different from another community. So lot depth here is defined as the shortest horizontal distance between the street line and the nearest nearest part of the rear lot line. The greater frontage on a corner lot shall be its depth. So when you look at our depth along North Disbro Hill Road, we're of course far in excess of 500 feet, but we have to seek that variance if that's your interpretation. Now that's an existing condition. So if the applicant were putting a birdhouse on this property, they're coming here to get that relief. That has nothing to do with the proposed development program. And I think and I'll testify globally as to the statutory proofs. I really just wanted to identify all the variances first, or we'll be here forever if I go through the proofs for each individual variance. The second variance that we're asking for is for the 6-foot-high sculpted undulating berm in the buffer area. Now, we are providing a compliant buffer, and in Ms. Apte's March 5th, 2024 review of this, she makes an affirmative statement that the board, they have found the condition to keep the existing vegetation as satisfactory. So, and what that means in plain English is that we could comply and we could put that sculpted undulated berm in there. But what we would have to do it is we'd have to take out a lot of trees to put that berm in there. So it can be done. We're not asking for relief to have a smaller buffer. We're just asking, don't make us take the trees down, because they're existing mature trees and they're actually meeting the intent of the ordinance there. So that's the relief that we're seeking there. We're also asking for a retaining wall in our buffer area. That retaining wall is proposed to the east along the westernmost driveway on North Disbro Hill Road. So it's the west of that driveway, really, right in that area. So there is a retaining wall over there, and there are some wetlands over there, and we're looking to minimize our disturbance in there, and that construction of that retaining wall assists us in doing that. So that is where we're seeking that relief. I believe we're moving our cursor to the screen where you can see we're seeking the relief for the retaining wall in that area. With respect to signage, I believe that the board has the right and has the authority per your ordinance to grant additional variance relief, given the fact that we have additional frontage here. Now, in an abundance of caution, I believe that we will, of course, seek the variance relief. But my review of section 108-10.111 of your ordinance, I'll read that section again if anyone wants to look at it. It's section 108-10.111. And how that reads in your ordinance is, whenever a parcel is bordered by more than one street, additional signage may be permitted by the municipal agency in accordance with the standards of this section for each major street upon which the parcel fronts. So here we have frontage on Butcher Road, and we have frontage on North Disbro Hill Road. And we have significant frontage, over 1,000 feet, on North Disbro Hill Road. When you look at the fact that in the HD zone, you're required to have 300 feet of frontage, and we have over 3 times that on North Disbro Hill, where we're asking to have the 2 signs, together with the fact that your ordinance recognizes legislatively that when you have multiple street frontages, it is reasonable to ask for some additional signage there. But we are, again, in an abundance of caution, because I believe the way the ordinance reads, the board may permit additional signage, so it doesn't say shall, so it doesn't force you to. It does give you that discretion. So I think, to be conservative, we should seek the relief. The other thing I should point out on the size of that freestanding sign that we're proposing is a 6 by 24 square foot sign. So it's 6 by 4. 24 square feet sign. Yes, thank you. Really not my strong suit is math. So, and the ordinance allows for 50 square feet. So I think as a team, we tried to be sensitive to what your ordinance allows and not overpower the area with the sign. So again, so we're clear, it's a 6 by 4, 24 square foot sign, and the ordinance would allow a 50 square foot sign in that area. We are also seeking a variance for the sign location. The ordinance requires that no sign be located closer than 20 feet to any lot line, where we're proposing a 5-foot setback. And again, as we provided to you in both pictures as well as testimony. And if you've had an opportunity to visit the site, you know that there's a lot of trees out there, and we just felt that placing the sign back 5 feet makes it visible given the existing vegetation along the roads. And again, the sign in the buffer area would require some relief. So that's the relief with respect to the depth, the buffer, and the retaining walls and the signs. We are also asking for relief for the number of parking spaces. You heard testimony both from Mr. Connolly as well as our traffic engineer, and operationally, it wouldn't be great business for them, and they manage these type of centers. They have millions of dollars or millions of square footage of warehouse space under their management. So certainly they're not going to want to build a new asset that they don't have adequate parking, because that's going to cause a problem for them to get tenants, right? If they can't park it, they're not going to be able to get this tenanted, and that's not really ideal for you, them, or anybody. So I think, the parking, we use the ITE standards. That's an industry standard guideline. That's not something, that's unique here to Monroe or that we use just for this application. It's a well-accepted way to determine, an appropriate parking amount. And this is what our application team feels as though is an appropriate amount of parking. And there's really no need to build additional parking, right? That just creates additional impervious surface and disturbance. And if it's not needed, it's not needed. So similarly, with the parking stall size, we are proposing 9 by 18, where your ordinance requires 10 by 20. This is not an area where people are going to be coming shopping, or we're going to have significant turnover like you would in a convenience store or a food store, where you might want to have the wider parking spaces, at least in the more used area. That's not how this use is going to perform. So in the vehicular parking area where the passenger vehicles would be parked, we are proposing 9 by 18, which we believe is an efficient use of the parking, the introduction of asphalt, and will certainly be appropriate and well matched to this use. Other variance relief that we require is to the location of the parking stall, that passenger parking field, which is to the west of the existing building. You can clearly see it. It is located in the buffer area, or the front yard area. So the ordinance restricts you from having parking within a front yard area, and we do have, while it's out of the 60-foot front yard, it is technically in front of the building. So I think that conservatively, you are considering that to be a variance. And then the other variance that we're seeking is for the parking in relation to the outer walls of the building. We're at our closest point. We have parking within 8 feet of the loading docks. So that is that's essentially the variance relief that we're seeking. We do need the design waiver for the lighting. And again, that is to have less lighting than the ordinance requires. We are not asking to exceed the lighting requirements. So statutorily, the board can grant the relief that we're seeking under 2 mechanisms. And when I say statutorily, that just means the burden of proof for bulk variances. You can grant that relief under the 40:55D of the municipal land use law as a C1 variance or a C2. And again, this is not unique to Monroe, right? That's the New Jersey Municipal Land Use Law statute, and it applies to anybody seeking a bulk variance in the state of New Jersey. The C1 criteria are very specific, and they relate to the shape, topography, or unique features of a property, or the structures lawfully existing thereon. So we don't have any structures here on our property that are contributing to the relief, but we certainly do have some encumbrances, such as the flood hazard area. You see that big green swath of area of our site that's, we confirmed and is confirmed in your planner's review as being undeveloped given the constraints of that property. So that forces us to shift all of our development to the western portion of the site. This, in my opinion, together with the shape of this property, is what I would consider a textbook C1 criteria, a textbook C1 hardship, because it relates to features on the property and where we can develop the property, and it relates to the shape of the property. So and I do teach planning and zoning courses, and I would use this as an example of a C1 hardship because I think it applies. In the absence of any hardship criteria, though, the board is still within its right to grant variance relief if you feel that one or more of the purposes of the municipal land use law would be advanced by the grant of the variance relief. Now, statutorily, the applicant only has to advance one of those purposes. And those purposes, again, not unique to Monroe Township. I didn't make them up in my 20 years of practicing. They come right out of the statute at 40:55D-2. I believe there are a number of them that are advanced by this application. Criteria C talks about providing adequate light, air, and open space. Here you have a situation where we are providing less than half of the coverage required for the zone, and I think that certainly we're providing adequate green space on the site. Criteria G talks about providing sufficient space in appropriate locations for a variety of uses in order to meet the needs of all New Jersey citizens. So this is, again, zoned for this type of use. It's an as-of-right development that violates none of the bulk criteria. So I think criteria G is advanced by the land use law. I also think criteria M, which talks about an efficient use of the lands, targeted and aimed at avoiding urban sprawl and degradation of the environment. So when you look at the fact that the parking spaces, for example, of 9x18 versus 10x20, that, in my opinion, is clearly a better zoning alternative for this type of use. It lends to exactly what criteria M of the land use law is talking about, of having an efficient layout that doesn't result to urban sprawl and degradation of the environment. So I think criteria M is applicable here as well. And then I think criteria I, which talks about promoting a desirable visual environment. I think that the architectural pattern or palette that we provided provides, a muted view. We have a filtered view at best, right? The ordinance doesn't require us to obliterate completely the view of the building, but it is certainly an attractive building with a filtered view at best, given the vegetation and the vantage point. So I think certainly criteria I of the land use law. And again, statutorily, you could grant C2 variances if only one of the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced. I cited 4 of them: criteria C, criteria G, criteria M, and criteria I, which I believed are advanced by this application. So, and that's the positive criteria. So when you hear planners talk about the positive criteria, that's what they're talking about, the purposes of the municipal land use law. And regardless of which section of the statute the board is invoking, whether you're going to grant under the C1 hardship or C2 flexible C, we have an obligation as an applicant to demonstrate the negative criteria. And the negative criteria really has 2 prongs to it, right? It has the impact on the zone plan and the impact on the public good. And statutorily, the land use law does not ask you to hold us or any other applicant to such a standard that there's no detriments. That is not the test. The test is that the benefits of the grant of the variance would outweigh any detriments, and that there's no substantial detriment on the zone plan and the planning for the community or the public good. So one of the things I have an opportunity to do, I do a lot of development applications throughout the state of New Jersey. So this is certainly not the first warehouse facility that I've worked on. So I'm very familiar with the September 2022 Office of Planning and Advocacy warehouse siting guidelines. And that document would consider this a small-scale fulfillment facility. And in that document, it has warehouse siting guidelines. And there are a number of things in this application that, in my opinion, are consistent with those recommendations, such as developing facilities in close proximity to highway networks, directing all lighting to the interior of the site, locating warehouse dock doors and other on-site areas with significant truck traffic and noise away from sensitive receptors, and having a site design that provides adequate areas for on-site parking, on-site queuing, and that prevents trucks and other vehicles from queuing, circling, parking, or idling on public streets. So this application does all of that. Additionally, Monroe last looked at their master plan in 2022. Interestingly, the master plan acknowledged the need for warehousing developments. It specifically identified the COVID-19 pandemic has intensified the increase in demand for warehousing developments as more consumers choose to shop online rather than at brick and mortar stores. I'm reading, this is a direct quote from your master plan. Monroe's location in central New Jersey near the New Jersey Turnpike places it within a hot spot of warehouse development. In fact, the area along the New Jersey Turnpike corridor has the highest demand for final mile distribution facilities in the country. As a result, there is increasing pressure on Monroe to accommodate more warehousing facilities. While warehousing facilities offer a chance for Monroe to increase and diversify its tax base and bring jobs to the township, and then it talks about having careful considerations on the township's planning goals. So certainly Monroe, also in the land use element of the master plan, it talks about encouraging infill development within the industrial park areas and to encourage development where it's feasible and to create efficient use of the land. So I do think that the application as proposed, because this area is zoned as of right, I think it matches and aligns perfectly with your recently re-examined or adopted master plan element, which was done in 2022, which recognizes the vital importance of the warehousing economy to the state as well as Monroe. And I thought it was very telling that the HD zone, as it's described in that master plan, recognizes a regional market beyond Monroe's boundaries. So this informs my decision. This is how I come to my conclusions as a professional planner, that the variance relief associated with this site is not going to rise to a level of a substantial debt, and that certainly the applicant meets its burden of proof with respect to the impact on the zone plan and the public good, and that there will be no substantial detriment to the zone plan here or the public good in Monroe Township, but quite the contrary, that this application is well aligned with the stated goals articulated in your most recent master plan, as well as the use program and the bulk program identified in the HD zone.
So I have to be the problem here. And the problem is, I think you missed one. I think you missed one variance. I think you missed one. And if I'm wrong, just correct me.
I missed one? Oh, what did I miss?
Interrupting the witness. So, driveway width.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did miss that. You're right.
All right. If you wouldn't mind, the comments that you made
I'll just wait.
with regard to the justification, is that appropriate?
Mr. Smith, I can't hear because there's so much talking, so.
Anything further?
We can continue 1:00 night. Yeah, okay. Yes. Yes.
Let's proceed with this, okay? We're going to let everybody have their opportunity to talk. Okay, Mika, do you have any?
So I have that one variance. It's the driveway width. I apologize, it was number 11 on my list. I don't know how I missed it, but I did. The required driveway width at the curb line should be limited to 15 to 35 feet, where we're proposing 65 to 80 feet. Given the tractor trailers associated with this use, that's an appropriate driveway width for safe and efficient circulation.
Okay. Thank you for the short and sweet. And one more short and sweet. In the list of waivers, there were 3 additional waivers that I want to mention, and if whatever comment you want to make. Number 1, the use of HDPE storm pipe where RCP is required. Number 2, lawn grading exceeding 20% more than 5 feet from a building and 2% minimum lawn slope. And then lastly, number 3, request to waive additional soil logs not required by the BMP manual, which we did testify earlier.
So Sharik, Mr. Ali testified to the last one about the BMP, and Mr. Razumowitz questioned him, do you intend to comply with the DEP best management practices? And I believe he said he did. And he said, we're not asking for less soil logs, we're just asking for, I believe, a different distribution of them. So that was testified to. So that was number 3. Number 2, the grading. Mr. Ali and I had an opportunity to discuss that, and it's his intention to comply. So we're going to work with your engineering team and comply with that. And then the first one was the pipe. So, I mean, I don't know really what to say on that. I would think we could either try to comply or work with your professionals to provide.
I think it's a commonly used substitute. And if you would like any discussion from our engineer, we're happy to provide it.
And Mr. Chairman, that's something, if this application got approved, we can address at the time of shop drawings for construction.
Terrific. And the other one, was there one more?
No, that was 3.
That's it? Okay. Anything else, Ms. Cofone?
No, nothing for.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Conley?
Yes. Go ahead.
Given the lateness of the hour,
Why don't we let our township planner ask any questions?
oh, you got it.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have, I think Ms. Cofone went through all the variances that we've noted in our report. And I believe, just want to put it on the record, that there was one variance that was noted on the dumpster, but I guess the applicant is willing to comply with that. So that has been removed.
Yes, we will comply.
That's it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions from the board?
Not at this time.
Last comment.
Just wanted to say thank you. I know that most of you are volunteers, are professionals that are staying here very late, so we thank you for hearing us all out. We look forward to hearing from the residents, but we thank you for giving us the time tonight. We appreciate that.
That concludes our case, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. What we're going to do is we're going to let 2 or 3 members of the public speak, and then we're going to take a break and see when our professionals are available to reconvene and continue this application. We're not able to finish it tonight because we do want to hear from everybody, because what you all have to say is important to us. So we don't want to cut anybody short. So why don't we orderly, we'll take 2 or 3. Try to keep it between 3 and 5 minutes if at all possible. Hold on, please. Come on. Ma'am? Ma'am?
No, I don't want to speak. I want to, do you have another map that shows Route 33 along with this? Yeah. Yes. And the neighboring communities.
Come in the front.
And face.
Let's close so you can. Yeah, fine.
Okay. Wherever you're comfortable. State-
Ready? Can you hear me?
No,
All right, ready?
you have to be sworn in.
Oh,
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
yes, I do.
Okay, state your
full
name.
Spell your last name, and then you're ready to go.
My full name is Claudette Klimzak. My last name is Klimczak.
Sure, I was looking for the
This is-
Ready? Okay, ready?
Yeah.
My name is Claudette Klimzak, and I live in Monroe Place, literally across the street from the proposed warehouse, which was conveniently left off the map Federal Business Centers presented tonight. I am here tonight to represent my community and neighboring communities in opposing all of the variances Federal Business Centers is asking for, and to adamantly oppose the building of the warehouse and office space to begin with. As you can see, we are united in this proposal by the number of residents who came tonight. To be clear, let's see a show of hands as to everyone here that's opposed to this plan. Based on the show of hands, you can see we all have concerns about what this will do to our beautiful communities, and we are here to stand to oppose this request. The unity you see here tonight was all started by one person publishing your public notice letter in our neighborhood WhatsApp app a few days ago, asking if anyone else received your notice. We were shocked to see the notice and immediately began preparing for this meeting. We care so much about our communities that we came together over the past few days to express and organize our concerns. In just 4 days, we have accomplished organizing the various speeches you'll hear tonight and the next meeting, created a petition that now has 800 residents from Monroe signed. We created our signs in the audience, and encourage residents to show up at this meeting. As we take our turn speaking tonight and the next meeting, you will hear that many concerns we have about safety, traffic, pollution, increased noise, decreased property values, and most importantly, how our children feel about the impact to the quality of their lives. We hope that you take what we say to heart and put yourselves in our places and ask yourself, would you want a warehouse across the street from your house? We are baffled to think how the planning board even accepted this proposal in what is a predominantly a quiet residential area and even consider the list of variances requested. If an applicant has to ask for that many variances, they are clearly trying to put an oversized project into a very small area. We have to ask, how is it that the township rejected variance requests from many of our Monroe residents for a slightly larger deck in their own backyard, yet you are going to entertain a laundry list of exceptions for a warehouse and office building? Gotcha. Yet you're going to entertain a laundry list of exceptions for a warehouse and office building complex in a residential neighborhood. It doesn't make sense. We do understand the tax revenue benefits to the township and residents by adding businesses like Federal Business Centers. However, in this case, we believe there are more appropriate areas in Monroe to build warehouses and offices, like Route 33, Station Road, and more remote non-residential areas that Monroe has plenty of, rather than building in a neighborhood. In addition, according to LoopNet.com, there are currently 33 warehouses up for lease in the area, with 11 of them in Monroe, and there are 69 office buildings available for lease in the surrounding area, with approximately 20 of them in Monroe. So why do we need another warehouse or office building to be built to be left sitting idle? If there is anything this town needs more of, is public parks and recreation areas. We ask the planning board members, have you driven by the area and looked at the surroundings? Did you see how narrow Butcher Road is and the curves making it difficult to turn left out of Monroe Place, especially when cars come speeding around the curve? We can only imagine what it would be like with large trucks and extra cars from the office building, not to mention the backup at the Route 33 and Butcher Road light, especially since tractor trailers take several minutes to get moving from a dead stop, taking up much of the green light, just getting through the intersection, and most likely causing a backup of traffic down Butcher Road. Even worse is the risk of cars or truck drivers running through the yellow light and even potentially running red lights as their patience run out waiting to get through the light. There are enough accidents already at the Route 33 Butcher Road Applegarth intersection, and we certainly do not need more. By the way, there was an accident today at the corner of North Disbro and Butcher. We cannot stress enough how important it is for this proposal to be denied. Not just the variance request, but the building of the warehouse and office building. We hope the planning board members listen to all our points that will be made here tonight and at the next meeting, and to make the right decision for all Monroe Township residents, especially for those who live in the area. And to Federal Business Center representatives, we know you are a very successful third-generation family-run business. Your website states that exceptional service is your passion, and your greatest reward is your relationship with each of your customers, also noting your business is really people, people, people. So we ask you to listen to the concerns from all the people in this room tonight and make your greatest reward a relationship with the residents of Monroe by finding another warehouse office friendly location in Monroe to build your complex. Maybe even consider donating the property to Monroe for a much-needed park and recreational area. We would be more than happy to add a sign recognizing your contribution to our town. Thank you to the mayor's representative, the planning board members, Federal Business Center for your time tonight.
Thank you, appreciate it. It's about 5 of 10. We were going to adjourn at 10, but let us take a short break so we can discuss when we might be able to come back.
But Laura took back because Jeannie sent me, my Jeannie sent me everything that he was doing.
Okay, thank you all for your patience. Due to the lateness of the evening, again, it's really important. We want everybody who wants to be heard. And in fairness to you, we have got to adjourn this meeting tonight. We're going to resume it without notice on September 26, 2024, at 6:30.
I'm sorry,
And I-
Did you say the date?
September 26th. And that way it'll give the applicant time to do additional research along with our township engineer regarding some of the traffic issues that were discussed tonight. And hopefully there'll be some additional answers for you. But again, I guarantee everybody will be heard that evening.
Public forum with me before the start of the meeting, Chair. So, today we have chairman, we have come here. today, all of
You're not,
us
sir, you're not on the record.
To speak, so my request is allow at least you to speak, and next meeting you allow others to speak, then start the meeting. That is the fair request.
10 o'clock.
I guarantee everyone will have an opportunity to be heard. I guarantee it. So I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. I make a motion. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I motion.
Or second?
A question?
Public forum,
Chairman, a question? So
Quiet, please. Quiet.
Mr. Chairman, if I could ask a question? Do you want we have the September 26th date noted. Do you want all of our professionals back?
Yes, we do.
You do.
So they can answer any questions from
Thank you for the clarification.
public.
And there's no further notice or publication required, correct? Thank you.
Okay, did we get a second?
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Has there been a second to adjourn the meeting?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the meeting's adjourned.
I have a